I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to World Cycle.
To the Eiffel Mountains we go, into the Rhineland-Palatinate, and of course to the Nürburgring. A storied venue across motorsport, it's been a staple since the 20s. Most of that comes courtesy of the Nordschleife, but since the 80s the Grand Prix layout has been doing its part to bring a whole host of racing to this region. Our return here last season saw Jerne Simoncic head to the top of the podium, just 2 seconds separated the top three, with Berliak and Hoyer close behind. Fast forward a year and it's a very different World Championship opening over the first two races. Home soil for the likes of Dennis Jordan, Alex Siebel and our current championship leader Michi Hoyer, looking for inspiration to target his third consecutive victory to open the season. It's time for the German Grand Prix, round 3 of 12 in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, brought to you by SimLab, 3D Wrap, Masita Esports and The Race. As always in the commentary booth, it's myself, Lewis McGlade, and alongside me, Ewan O'Leary.
Thanks, Lewis, and welcome to everybody at home as well. Yeah, massively looking forward to this race once again. We've got 10 rounds to go in the season, yeah, I know we're only in April, but yeah, it's been a fantastic season so far. Big drama at the start of last race, I think it's fair to say, and we'll go through that in a few moments' time as well, because there's a lot to unpick, especially from the first corner, but not least the rest of the race as well. From the Portuguese Grand Prix. But yeah, we're here for the Nürburgring Grand Prix. And you mentioned the top three from last season's race, Simoncic, Berliak and Hoyer. That's actually the top three from the season as well. So I wonder if the top three in this race are also going to end up the top three in the championship this year as well.
There we go. Small Nürburgring turns to a normal-sized Nürburgring, 10 out of 10. Of course, speaking of the opening two races of the season, Michi Hoyer with the double victory. And both of those have been from pole position as well. He's done the work in qualifying. How important will that be today at a circuit where we know overtaking is difficult? 2 podiums for Jerne Simoncic, 2 fourth places for Alex Siebel, who comes into this race fairly confident. Liam de Waal, after that fantastic opener of the season at San Marino, involved in that first corner carnage and then ended a retirement of Portugal. You've got the likes of Dennis Jordan, who worked his way up the order after starting towards the back on a 3-stop strategy, very aggressive, but he worked on the hard tyres in qualifying, one of those to experiment with that. We'll cover that through qualifying, of course, a podium as well for Peter Berliak. The rest of the order you can see there on your screen. Important to score points early in the season. Of course, it's a 12-round season. It's not a particularly long one. There's no drop scores in the FSR World Championship, and so to take really a hold of things here at the German Grand Prix going to be really important. You can see here 4th of April, we're running back-to-back this week. We run German Grand Prix, we run over to Zandvoort, and then have the Dutch Grand Prix before taking a little bit of a break and then heading to home soil for all of us, the British Grand Prix. So plenty of action still to come on the run all the way through until the 22nd of August for our final race at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Germany here today, the Nürburgring. We've seen that qualifying has been quite important so far this season, with Michi Hoyer grabbing both race wins from pole position, Ewan, and obviously
Track position is also going to be very, very important, because it's going to be easier to defend from the front than maybe at a circuit like the one we were at 2 weeks ago for the Portuguese Grand Prix. I guess Imola's a kind of difficult circuit to overtake at as well, but we saw in that particular situation that Michi Hoyer, he qualified on the softs, he qualified on pole. It's a good lap from him, and then he used a couple of soft tyres at the start of the race as well to consolidate that lead. And when he was on the hards, he could defend from the front and maintain that track position. I think that's going to be the winning strategy today. You might think that there's only one winning strategy. It's a very easy thing to do, but you've got to qualify on pole in that strategy, and that's not an easy thing to do. So I think whoever does qualify on pole here is going to be in a great place, but doing that is very, very difficult. And then once you're there, I believe anyway, that you've got to use your soft tyres to get out front and then stay out front throughout the rest of the race, which is considerably easier than trying to come from behind and take the win.
We're in qualifying, and we've got plenty of time to complete the 3 hot laps in the FSR World Championship. Basically, over the session, again, for those of you who are fairly new to the World Championship, drivers will have 3 hot laps. So effectively only 3 time laps to make sure they get things right and get themselves qualified high up the order. And with the way the tyre strategy works is they've got a choice to make. They must run 2 sets of the hard compound tyre across the evening. That can be 1 set in qualifying on their fastest lap time, or it can be 1 set in the qualifying and then 1 set in the race, or it can be 2 sets in the race. And that kind of opens things up strategy-wise. We saw people play with it last round. We didn't see anyone really play with it back at the first round of the season at Imola. It was actually fairly simple strategy-wise. Everyone qualified on the soft compound of tyre. I think now, as the season's progressing, we're seeing people try to experiment with it. Although a circuit like this, I don't really want to. I want to be on the soft. I want to be trying to qualify towards the front of the field because it's so difficult to pass. There are a few notes, though, that we learnt from the previous Grand Prix at Portugal, is that, for one, Jerne Simoncic in the interview afterwards, when we were like, oh, what was the 4-stop strategy about? He laughed and said it was the fastest strategy. So a 4-stop strategy almost seems like a few drivers might experiment with such a feat. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, I'm not so sure myself. Around here, though, we do know that tyre wear is also going to be a big deal as well for good measure. So should make things pretty interesting come that race.
Yeah, I don't really know about whether Simoncic is telling. I'm sure he is telling the truth by that, but I'm not so sure as Simoncic was trying to cover off Siebel and trying to consolidate second. He might have realised that Hoyer was up the road. You know, he wasn't going to try and catch him, or wasn't going to be able to catch him. It was going to be very, very difficult by that point. And so he employed the 4-stop strategy just to ensure that Siebel wasn't going to come from behind and take his second place away. So, yeah, I think that Simoncic was kind of consolidating second at that point, but he's going to go for the win today, as they all are, I suppose. But we're about to get the first times in. Janis Braxok's going very, very quickly at the moment. He goes 7 tenths quicker than Luca D'Amelio out front at the moment, and 82 thousandths ahead of Alex Siebel, who we watched come across the line there. Dennis Jordan nearly half a second back as Ricardo Costa comes over the line. A little bit wayward from him on that lap, a particular, I'm afraid. But yeah, first few times rolling in, and Braxok is setting a good pace there.
A driver who's had a good qualifying record in his FSR career, as I think there's been a couple of poles in there for him, and starting towards the front here would do him some favours, but there's still plenty of time for everyone else to fire in some good lap times. There's lap-ins on screen at the moment. A few notes in this qualifying session. I think it was Sergio Fletcher who was a late addition to the field today, replacing Blake Checkett. He's not allowed to qualify, courtesy of the RSVP rules, so he'll be starting towards the back of the grid. There is also another replacement on the grid, being Leonov. Can't see him on my leaderboard. He's in 11th position as Michi Hoyer goes on to pole position. Wow, by 0.2 of a second. Good on him. Mohamed Patel as well. He is not allowed to qualify. He'll be starting from the pit lane. We'll get onto that once the qualifying session has finished as to why that is the case. Jerne Simoncic struggled in qualifying last time, only 8th place, only 7th here at the moment after that first lap. Ooh, not used to seeing that.
No, we're really not used to seeing that, and it's got to be a little bit worrying, I think, to Simoncic at some point. And we're early in the season, there's still 10 rounds to go, but he can't wait around forever to start chasing down Michi Hoyer in this championship. And if Hoyer's going to take another pole here, with Mocek in second at the moment, he's putting a good performance. Carlos Martin as well, 5th place, good performance from him so far. But yeah, if Hoyer gets another pole, starts defending from the front, then he's going to be very, very difficult to unseat in this championship at the moment. He's got a 17-point lead as things stand. Long way to go, as we mentioned, but, you know, said it already, Simoncic's got to start reading him in at some point, and I think that he's going to want to as soon as possible, really. 7th place is not going to do that for him, I'm afraid. I know he had game issues coming into the Portuguese Grand Prix, which is why he didn't qualify maybe as good as he could have done, but he negotiated the Turn 1 carnage pretty well and put in a good performance anyway. So that hampered him a little bit, but not too much. He's going to need a bit of a better performance in this particular qualifying session, though. He's still got 2 more laps to do that in, as Jeffrey Fournier now comes over the line, and he slots himself into 15th place, just ahead of the one of the new drivers, Ivan Leonov.
Yeah, with Fournier, we've seen good pace out of him previous. We've seen good. Distinctly remember back to the French Grand Prix a few years ago. Was very, very impressive. More so in the race. I think he qualified about 11th that day, and then ended up somewhere near the podium or on the podium. Obviously a very long time ago, mind. And with that, we'd expect a little bit more from him, to be honest. Obviously, his return to the World Championship this season was not a part of it in 2020. We're riding on board with Luca D'Amelio, who was a part of the FSR World Championship last season, driving for Singularity Ghost Speed. And then there was a bit of a split in that partnership, but Ghost Speed picked him up proper. And now he'll cross the line, goes to 10th, so gets himself inside the top 10. Janis Brakshock in all of that, by the way, speaking of Ghost Speed, has gone back to the top of the timesheet. Michi Hoyer, though, is wasting no time on trying to get back on that. He's gone fastest in the first sector. It is 100th faster than the Hungarian ahead of him. Janis Brakshock, though, what a lap time, 26.245, trying to take on the championship leader here.
Yeah, he is indeed, and he's put in a great performance. As you mentioned a little bit earlier on, he has got one pole already in the FSR World Championship, and he's got a pole. Oh, that's a big slide for Michi Hoyer, and he's not going to be able to unseat the Hungarian with this particular lap. Pushing very, very hard, though. That's very, very clear to see, but there's still time in that Burst Esport car. He went purple in the first sector, so this qualifying session is far from over just yet. The excitement and the anticipation is just building, really. And Hoyer's really going to be able to give this a very good go in the final moments of qualifying. We're still yet to see the decent performances come out of guys like Petr Burliak and Jurnej Simontic, just a moment, who is going quickly. Burliak now comes over the line, though, and he does improve, but stays in 8th position. Carlos Martin also into the final corner, but what can Jurnej Simontic do? He's coming around the chicane at the moment as well, so you'll see in a few moments' time, but there's still time for Hoyer to maybe get ahead of Brakshock as Carlos Martin goes into 3rd place. Simontic comes over the line, and he goes into 5th.
I think that might be one of the better qualifying sessions for Carlos Martin in the FSR World Championship. He's been part of it for a while. He's had a few podiums, including, I think there's one back in 2014 at the Canadian Grand Prix. Has been on and off in the World Championship. Come back, done a couple of races, and then sort of left, and then came back, did a couple. Has done the first two this season, rejoining the World Championship for the first time as a full-time driver since 2015. Qualifying in 3rd place. First race of the season, finished 15th. Second race of the season, finished 8th. Seeming to be constantly building on himself at the moment and doing a very, very good job. We're in the dying moments of the session, though, as we're riding on board with Jeffrey Fournier up towards the NGK chicane, see if he can improve on the lap times that he's doing. And to be fair, with that run through the NGK chicane, I'm not so sure. And the run through Coca-Cola curve, not going to help him either. Let's see what he does across the line. He's currently down in 18th position. I don't think we're going to see too much of an improvement for the Frenchman. In fact, we do not see any, and he's going to stay in 18th.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, really, because it was going quite well for him in the first two sectors, and unfortunately the chicane in the final corner really untied him there, so yeah, I'm afraid that Fournier is going to be no better than 18th, because there's not even time for him to get round again to start his final lap time. He's just missed time this one ever so slightly, I'm afraid, so he's going to be starting way down the order, but he's not going to be alone back there. Certainly, guys like Patel, Fletcher, Kraus are going to be down there with him, Van der Neek, Kish, and all of those guys. So we'll look to those guys for the action into the first few and throughout the race, indeed. But we're on board with Janis Brakshock at the moment. He's got a big opportunity right now to take his 2nd ever FSR World Championship pole position. At the moment, his first sector not looking that good, but if Hoyer doesn't do any better than he's already done, then it's not going to matter too much. He's going to want to get that little bit of an insurance buffer, though, because he's only got half a tenth at the moment, and he's going to be chewing his nails off towards the end of this session, because it's going to be very, very close indeed between these two drivers. We'll see if even somebody come from behind, someone like Carlos Martin or Jurnej Simontic, can really pull something out the bag as Brakshock goes purple in the middle sector. He's doing a good lap at the moment. Will it be enough for pole? It remains to be seen, but he's just going to negotiate these final few corners well. A bit of a slide out the chicane might not be ideal for him. We'll see what this lap time is in a moment.
I'm not so sure about that line out of the final chicane. We'll see what he does across the line. He already knew it wasn't enough. to improve. Still, a 26.2 seems to be a pretty healthy lap time. In the practice session prior to this, it was Rodger who topped it on a 126.165. The next fastest time was Mitchy Hoyer on a 26.264, which is obviously slower than Janis Brakshock's current time. Alex Siebel currently on the screen, a driver who we know is pretty fast and felt confident coming into this race. His first sector is actually pretty good. It's only a few hundredths off of Janis Brakshock across the second sector split, losing a little bit of time. See if we can gain any back through that final chicane, but things are looking good for Janis Brakshock for his first pole position in 2 years. It was the Italian Grand Prix in 2019 where he took that pole position. There was a famous crash coming through Curva Grande that day that ended his chance of victory. It was an interesting strategy call that he pulled. There we go. Alex Siebel does improve at the end of the session, gets himself onto the front row of the grid. 8 thousandths off. Oh, and there we go for a spin. One we don't see too often from Jane Simoncic.
Yeah, absolutely. Hoyer comes over the line now, and he does not improve on his lap time, so it's going to be third place for the championship leader. Simoncic was up on his time there, by the way, but he's staying in sixth place, couldn't improve. A spin out of the final chicane does that for him, so he's going to be out of position for the second race in a row. It's really not been the greatest qualifying performances from him so far in 2021, but what a great one it was from this man. Janis Brakshock taking his second ever FSR World Championship pole position by just 8 thousandths of a second. Alex Siebel with a great improvement towards the end of that session to get into that front row position. And he's going to be just ahead of Mitchy Hoyer and Carlos Martin on the second row.
Mr. Consistency of 2020. A top 10 finish in 9 of the 10 races. Janis Brakshock heads to the front of the field and grabs himself pole position, 8 thousandths clear of Evolution Motorsports' Alex Siebel. All these drivers that have qualified up towards the front have done it on the soft compound tyre. Just 2 drivers who have completed qualifying. They did it their fastest time on the hard tyres. That's Danny Kish and Danny van der Neet down in 20th and 21st position. Everyone else opting to go for that soft compound tyre, meaning that everyone else must run 2 sets of the hards in the race. We're expecting to see a 3 or a 4 stop strategy. With the way the fuel tank is in the World Championship, with it being quite a small fuel tank, we know that realistically it has to be a 3 stop. But I'm very curious to see this 4-stop strategy from Jane Simoncic. Essentially, the method is that obviously the tyres drop off quite quickly, is that the fuel tank is quite small, but the refueling time takes quite a while. If you half that refueling time by just taking a smaller tank or take 2/3 of a tank, you're shrinking that pit stop by quite a bit. And that's kind of like the method, is to basically just shrink that pit stop and then make the most of fresh tyres and come back into it later on. It's a strategy which we saw Jane Simoncic work to perfection in the Race Indy Pro Championship at the end of last year. Using some of that method here today, that's kind of what we were expecting to see. Some drivers using some mentality from that season, bringing it into here, and we're starting to see them push the boundaries of the strategy.
Yeah, we are. It's a little bit of a shake-up, certainly, and I think in 2021, I'm very, very glad to see that strategy has been given more of an importance this season, because it was sort of a byproduct in the past. It's on the occasion. It was a bit of a byproduct. So yeah, I'm very, very glad about that. But a possible 4-stop race, maybe a 3-stop. I don't think it's too outrageous to say that Simoncic will be leading this race at some point. I'm not entirely sure whether he's going to be leading on the all-important final lap. That remains to be seen. But yeah, big strategic moments going to be coming up throughout this race, and I'm very interested to see which one's going to be best.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. There's been some fantastic qualifying. One of them wasn't Mitchy Hoyer. He only qualified in 3rd position, 2 pole positions this season. Let's take a look around the Nürburgring with Mitchy Hoyer.
This is Formula Sim Racing. My name is Mitchy Hoyer. Welcome, guys, to round 3 of the Formula Sim Racing 2021 series. We are at my home racetrack. We are at the Nürburgring, and I am very pleased to take you guys around for a presentation lap around this circuit. Final turn, carry all the speed across the line over the start finish straight, longest straight, best overtaking opportunity into turn 1, heavy braking zone into a turn that drops down on the circuit. Very important you get the right exit traction into turn 2. The left-hander wants to swing around as you want to already focus on turn 3 and 4. Very Mickey Mouse circuit that is. out of 4 Mercedes-Benz arena through 5 into 6-7, quick left and right hander. Wanna not ride those exit curbs too much here out of 7 that is, into turn 8, hairpin, classic tight, white, tight combination. Once again, don't want to take too much of the curb on the exit. Turn 9 and 10, Schumacher S, all the way flat in race and in qualifying. And into turn 11 and 12 we go, another left-right combination. Don't want to touch the curbs too much here as well, but here it is very important you get blistering exit onto the back straight through turn 13. Obviously no issue whatsoever, and then coming for 14, 15, the NG gate chicane, heavy braking zone. Don't touch the anti-cuts as they may just throw you off. And into turn 16, the Jaguar turn with a Jag outside of the apex here, and that is 1 lap going across the line, the Nürburgring circuit. Guys, we're looking forward to very interesting racing with strategies being important for all the divisions.
The FSR World Championship are ready to continue. Thanks to Michi Hoyer for that hot lap. Qualified in 3rd position today, a couple of positions short of his previous 2 qualifying sessions. But Janis Brakshock is the driver who's grabbed pole position for the first time since 2019. See if he can convert that one to a race victory. 60 laps ahead of us in the Grand Prix today, and it'll be strategy left, right and centre to see who's going to be grabbing victory. They're about to start the formation lap here, and the curiosity comes as to whether it's going to be those drivers that have started on the hard tyres, on the softs, what's going to happen with those and how the tyre wear is going to work out. Janis Brakshock's going to be starting from pole position, looking for his first victory in the World Championship, ahead of Alex Siebel. Michi Hoyer, after 2 consecutive victories, starts from 3rd, and Carlos Martin on his full-time return to the World Championship in his 3rd race after qualifying 16th and 17th, starts from 4th. David Marocek and Jerne Simicic make it an all-burst 3rd row on the grid, with Dennis Jordan and Ibrahim Khan. Best qualifying session from him. That is a fantastic lap time from Khan, up in 8th place. Peter Beliak and Tom Satherley round out the top 10, with Adam Maguire and Luca D'Amelio down in 12th place. Liam Deval and Ricardo Costa, Luke Maguire and Ernest Lappins starts from 16th position. Behind that, we've got Robin Panzer and Jeffrey Fournier from the 18th position. The next 2 cars, Ivan Leonov and Danny Kish. Ivan Leonov, obviously a late sign-up to the series. Danny Kish, one of the drivers that qualified on the hard compound tyre, same as Danny Van Der Neet as well in 21st. Phil Kraus in 22nd position. Sergio Fletcher's got to start from the back of the grid. And Mohamed Patel, after a disqualification and a back of the grid drop, or a pit lane start rather, must start from the pit lane after an incident back in Portugal, where he caused that massive start line crash between all of the HMEs. That started with Mohamed Patel. Now from the pit lane, it's going to be a very, very, very long day for the BS Plus Williams driver. Janis Brakshock, though, starting from pole position in a very good spot. Pole position's been converted both times this season to a race victory, Ewan. And do you think he's going to be doing it today? Do you think he's going to be taking his first victory in the World Championship?
I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him. I think he's going to be on the podium, but I don't think he's going to win this one somehow. I don't know. I just can't see it at the moment. He's one of those drivers who's very consistent as well. We call like Siebel Mr. Consistent, but Brakshock also scored points in 9 out of the 10 races in 2020. So he's not a bad driver. And he's been on the pole position before. He's even won the 2020 Winter Series, not last winter, but the winter before, here at FSR. So, he's not a bad driver by any stretch of the imagination. I just can't see him winning today. I'd like to see him win. Certainly, my heart is saying Brakshock, but I'm afraid my brain is saying Hoyer again.
Hoyer. Oh, interesting. We can see there on the left-hand side of your screen various drivers starting on the hard tyres. In fact, more starting on the hards than starting on the softs. That is very, very interesting indeed. What do you make of that?
Well, that's the first time we've seen that all season, and I think they might... It used to be the alternate strategy, but I think they might just cancel each other out a little bit with that. Or they might get in the way of each other. We'll wait and see how that pans out, because they might all be on different strategies, despite the fact they're starting on the same tyres. So we'll see about that one, but I think they might fall over each other a little bit.
4 of the top 5 drivers on the grid are yet to take their World Championship victory. Michi Hoyer, the only one inside that top 5 who's taken a victory at this level, and that being 3 races, including the last 2 races. Janis Brakshock and Alex Siebel on that front row of the grid, desperate for their first chance to take top honours at this level. In the commentary booth, Lewis McGlade, Ewan O'Leary to take you through the 60 laps of running here at the German Grand Prix. FSR World Championship continues. We're here at Nürburgring. What is going to happen? We are underway. Janis Brakshock and Alex Siebel clear their way from the line, and it's going to be Siebel to the inside as we head down the hill into Yokohama. And Michi Hoyer is just trying to overdo it on the brakes. Carlos Martin's getting into the thick end of things as well with some of the Burst Esports drivers. Janis Brakshock's going to be leading the way from Evolution Esports' Alex Siebel, Michi Hoyer, Carlos Martin, David Morocek in behind. Dennis Jordan has got by. Jerne Simoncic are working up a couple of positions already on the start. Petr Berliak, Ibrahim Khan has dropped a couple of positions down as he's behind Adam Maguire. Decent start though.
Yeah, decent start from everybody actually. I thought Alex Siebel was going to run into the side of Brakshock early on, but they just about managed to avoid each other. A bit of a split in the field and a few splits further back because it's been quite chaotic in the midfield, as you might be able to expect. There's a few smoking engines out there, but it's nothing to worry about just for the moment as the tyres all sort themselves out and we start to get a view really on who's on what. Dennis Jordan making a good start though, as you say, getting ahead of Jerne Simoncic. Very, very important for him to do that. He needs to get out in front of these hard tyre guys because otherwise he's wasting one of his soft tyre stints in traffic.
Absolutely. Very, very important to clear that. And we'll see if these soft tyre runners can start clearing away from the hards. There is that split in the field from Ricardo Costa, between Ricardo Costa and Luca D'Amelio. Not quite sure what happened, but it seemed that it was coming out of the Mercedes Arena section to complete the first lap of the race. Janis Brakshock doing as he did when we went to the Italian Grand Prix from his last pole position, leading the field at the moment. Had a bit of a change on strategy that day and really caught the ACR Zakspeed drivers out that day. Of course, they all moved over into Burst, and so a little bit of a confusion for them on that day. They ended up coming up the field and they ended up taking victory that day from Janis Brakshock. Here's a replay. This will be what happened coming through. This is just a lot of smoky engines, a little bit of a switch on position. Yeah, he does have no wheel. That's Danny Van Der Neet. So completed qualifying for on the hard tyres. Was running his second set of hard tyres, but one of them's gone missing.
Yeah, that's not the fastest way to run your car, I'm afraid. So, yet to see where that happened, how that happened. But, yeah, shame to see for Danny Van Der Neet, who's got 3 wheels on his wagon. He's already out of this race. So is Jeffrey Fournier down the order. So, I think that's both... Oh, sorry, no, they're on different teams. They're just a very similar colour. Yeah, Fournier of Epic Racing out of the race as well, with Fletcher and Leonov into the pit lane. Both of the new drivers, or at least the replacement drivers for this particular Grand Prix, into the pit lane after only 1 lap. So there has been some chaos further down the order. There's Sergio Fletcher for AFP, and here's Edge Sports Leonov in the pit lane as well.
Also, one driver who has been in the pit lane, and this is an important note because this is very, very smart in my opinion. Mohammed Patel, after starting from the pit lane, has played a bit of a card here as he started the race on the hard compound tyre. He completed the first lap, and what did he do? He came straight into the pit lane to come in, get off those hards, get onto another set of hards, and now he's already on his second set of hards. That is playing it quite well, I think. I'm assuming he already had that kind of strategy in his mind before the race started. That's not like him being like, oh, well, what can I do here? I'm just going to try and throw this at it. Like, he kind of knew that this was the strategy he was going to run. Very interesting to try and get both of those hard tyres out of the way whilst the whole pack is compressed and whilst they're battling, because he may come back into this in quite a decent way later on. I like the look of that strategy. Fast lap of the race, of course, in the previous one, coming from Janis Brakshock, who's trying to break the field now 1.2 seconds clear of Alex Siebel.
Yeah, he's doing a good job of breaking that field as well. Just looking behind him, you can see the gap's more than a second. And then you get to Carlos Martin, who's heading a bit of a train at the moment. Most of them are either on the same compound as him or on softer tyres, which is keeping the group together a little bit. Here is Ivan Leonov. Why is he into the pit lane so early on? There's a slow burst eSport car there on the left-hand side for some reason. Robin Panzart. Let's see what... Oh, he's got absolutely pile drived. Oh, that's an absolute mess, isn't it? We saw big chaos on the opening corner of the Portuguese Grand Prix. I'm afraid it has happened again. Robin Panzart going for a spin out of turn 2 And then what happens after that? He gets hit again, and he's just going across. It's a very similar situation to what we saw at Turn 1, the Portuguese Grand Prix. An absolute mess once again, though. I don't know what's been happening these last couple of weeks, what these guys have been having for breakfast, but it's clearly making some people quite angry because it's just been an absolute mess into Turn 1, into the first few corners at least, for the last few or for the last couple of races. Not what you expect to see from a World Championship field.
Where we had quite a good run at the start of the season in Imola, where it was a clean lap one. We saw carnage in both Academy and Pro that day, and then in the World Championship, everyone was actually quite well behaved. Naturally, as you'd expect from some of the best drivers on the field, on rFactor 2 and open wheelers. Last round, we saw chaos into Turn 1. This round, we're seeing more of it, and we need to clean this stuff up. People are being a bit naughty on the World Championship grid, and we deserve better, not only as a commentary partnership, but also as an audience, and to be fair, as drivers as well. Being told, by the way, that Mohammed Patel lost his... I was calling him for a great strategy call and all this, that and the other. Turns out that he lost his front wing in the kind of... I'm not sure if it was in that, or I'm being told it was in the chicane, so that kind of says to me, up at NGK. So something else has happened to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It also screams four-stop strategy, that does, even though it seems to be unplanned at this point. But yeah, Mohammed Patel getting his hard task stints out of the way at least. Might be able to do something. If he can scrape points, then it'd be a good drive for him. But very, very difficult for him to do so at the moment. We're on board, by the way, with Dennis Jordan here. Evolution Motorsports had a decent start to the season. He's in tied 5th place in this championship, a 5th and a 6th so far. However, his strategy for this particular race is being hampered just a little bit by the two in front of him, Carlos Martin and David Mocek. They're just running their own race. It's not their fault that they're in his way, and it's actually helping them. It's going to help them later on. They're going to reap the benefits of this. But Jordan is being held up. He should be going very quickly right now. He should be on the back of Michi Hoyer, really. If he'd have qualified better, then he would have been. But for the moment, he's stuck in traffic, hard tyres in front of him, and he just can't find a way through. It's really, really hampering his race. It doesn't seem like it at the moment. You might be thinking at home, well, he's in 6th place. What's so bad about that? But these guys are going to be going much faster than him later on, and he needs to get ahead of them before that happens, and that's not happening right now.
No, it is not ideal. Of course, it is quite hard to pass at the moment. Of course, the Nürburgring is naturally quite difficult to overtake at, and with no DRS on the cars in 2021, it does make things a little bit more difficult, and it means we have to work for our overtakes here, which is, to be fair, kind of what was the requested feature, realistically, previous, and trying to make sure that people are working for it. That was a request that mainly came from Mr. Double World Champion Jene Simičić after a race at Interlagos. Distinctly remember him saying that it's a bit easy with the slipstream and the DRS, you sort of sit behind people. This is what happened to Mohammed Patel. So coming round into the Mercedes Arena section, he did lose his front wing at some point. Right, so the carnage is still going on, and I'm assuming something happens out of here, no?
Maybe. Let's see. That's Danny van der Neet, I think, just in front. So let's have a look if there's any contact here with anybody. No, it seems like not for the moment. We're at a loss at the moment. We don't quite know where this has come. But he's coming out the chicane there. He's got no front wing, so it's a bit of a mystery to us at the moment.
I was told by our race director Thomas Lenz that it was at the chicane, which I wasn't sure if it was in, like, if it was just in that carnage. And obviously, you know, you could maybe count the exit of the arena section, it's left, right, maybe count that as a chicane, but obviously I would assume that more means the NGK chicane towards the end of the lap. But I don't quite know what's happening. Obviously, he was out there with like quite a group of cars, so I'm assuming there has been another incident between a couple of people, and he has just been a party to that. But well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. We're still a few laps in to the Grand Prix. Janis Brakshock leading. It went out to 1.3 seconds. It's coming back down to just 0.9 of a second as Alex Seabor's closing back in. Michi Hoyer out of that. They're trying to sort of break apart, I think, a little bit, because if you're the likes of Seabor, if you're the likes of Hoyer, you kind of don't want to sit on the back too much of the next car. There might be a little bit of strategy in that you could sit a little bit off to not get in the dirty air and just sort of make sure that your tyres are keeping together, because obviously around here, tyre wear is really quite high.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no real point in getting really, really close to the car in front, because Seaborg doesn't really want to overtake Brakshock anyway. I think it would be a poor choice to go for it at this point. We're on lap 7. We've got more than 50 laps to go. These guys are running similar strategies, so they're not going to be fighting until the last stint of the race. If that is the case, there's no point to get into getting less than half a second behind the car in front. I understand it with Dennis Jordan. He needs to get through on the likes of David Mocek, so he's close. He's putting the pressure on, and that's what you need to do. But for Alex Siebel, there's no need to get close to Jonas Braxog at the moment. Save your tyres, save your energy, save your everything, save your car, and wait for a little bit later. It might be the boring choice, but I think it will be an effective one later on.
Someone who's saving absolutely now. Tom Satherley on screen going for a bit of a drifty entrance into the Dunlop hairpin. Rears all over the place and just trying to rescue it. Also, I saw it come down to about 3/10. Dennis Jordan isn't trying to save his tyres on the back of David Marocek, but again, he's so close, but there is absolutely no way through. Same with Adam Maguire on the back of Peter Bolek just ahead of this. You can see, as much as it says 3/10, 4/10, if that, they're not close enough to do anything. The slipstream's not very big here. And the thing is you may be wondering at this point in the race, thinking, wow, this isn't like super duper interesting because they're just not able to do anything. The more the tyres wear, the more it opens things up to mistakes and stuff. And with it being such a high tyre wear circuit that we have, we're going to see some mistakes from a couple of these drivers. We saw quite a few when we were at the Portuguese Grand Prix a few weeks ago. This car is tricky to drive, and when you're in packs, when you're in battle packs, when you're under a lot of pressure, it is very easy to just push it a little bit too far and make a mistake, especially with all the tyre wear that we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a little bit later on as well, we're a little bit early for these kind of do or die maneuvers just for the moment, but a little bit later on when these strategies start to converge on each other and people really do start to have a sense of urgency about them, then we might see people taking a few more risks as well to try and send it down the inside at turn 1, for example, or any number of other corners really around the circuit. They're going to be taking more risks a little bit later on. So while this is the kind of holding pattern just for the moment, we're going to see the kind of big moves being made before long, I would imagine, because these guys can't sit behind whoever they're behind forever. They've got to make a move at some point, and we're looking at Dennis Jordan right now. This is a case in point, really. He needs to get through on Mocek and Martin, and he can't sit here forever. He needs to at least try and put the pressure on a little bit, unless he's going for a little bit of an undercut. For the moment, though, it looks like he's staying out, sticking to a free-stop strategy, which is what we're expecting throughout today. He's in the slipstream at the moment. He's less than 3/10 behind, and he could make a big dive bomb at the moment. It looks like he was thinking about it, and he is visibly thinking about it almost every time as they go down towards turn number 1. But it's too early in the race for that, and it's just too risky.
Brakes are quite powerful on these cars, so it makes it quite difficult to make a dive down the inside. Just wasn't able to try anything on Marocek. A few points that I want to throw out here. Number one, when you consider that Carlos Martin is on the hard tyres, David Marocek's on the hard tyres, Simicic is on hard tyres, and they're ahead by quite a bit. There is quite a bit of a gap between the group of Martin, Marocek and Jordan, and then the group behind of Simicic, Berliak, Maguire and Satherley. There is quite a large group there, or gap there between the two groups, which shows how impressive Carlos Martin's pace has been. A reminder, he qualified in 17th in the first round, 16th in the second round, and then this round, right up towards the top of the order. What's happened here with Phil Kraus? Got the Edge eSports on the inside. Is this what happened to... when... I was fairly early in the race. Luke Maguire, who a bit of contact between the two. They're all right, though. Got through it all right.
Yeah, Luke Maguire's DNF from the race, though, recently. So I wonder what's happened here, whether it's down into turn number 1. We've seen the battling going down here before. Let's see as we go down. Phil Kraus on the outside at the moment, braking very late, cutting across the nose ever so slightly. Close racing between the two, but nothing too major. A little bit of contact, but nothing bad at all as they go through the Mercedes arena now. And can't see where the incident's going to come here. Just kind of waiting for it, really. Maybe a spin out of here. No, we skip along a little bit to the hairpin. A little bit of a slide, but we see that often. We'll see where this incident does indeed come. But there it is. Through the Schumacher S. That is not a place you want to have an accident. And that's a big hit as well. That's the end of Luke Maguire's race.
Easy to make a mistake through there. Got Danny Kish as well, who's into the pit lane for Zancho Simsport, making an early stop. We ride on board with him coming into his box. Not sure if there was damage, if it was unscheduled or not, but either way, he's into the pit lane and they'll be leaving it shortly I don't think it was unscheduled because it seemed like a fairly fast stop, all things considered. The other thing I wanted to point out when we were speaking of tyre wear and you want to know how much the tyres drop off, we are only 10 laps into this race and already the pace is a second slower than where we started. Janus Brackshot kicked off the race by doing a 27.6, Alex Ebel with a 27.8. They are currently running in the high 28s now, so the pace is running a lot slower. 3 retirements from the race at the moment: Danny Van Den Eek, Jeffrey Fournier and Luke Maguire as things stand. Focused on that battle for 4th place as Carlos Martin is quite easily able to hang on for now.
Yeah, he is for the moment, but Motec is coming under increasing pressure now because he's letting Martin go out in front a little bit. So the slipstream benefit he's getting down towards turn 1 and down towards the chicane as well is a little bit less, but Jordan's nowhere near close enough now, ducking out of the slipstream there, which is something you often see in the rain, so you can actually see where you're going, but it's not raining right now, and maybe engine temperatures, tyre temperatures, something going on there. But Ernest Lappins is into the pit lane here. Some short stops coming in. We're told that Field can do about 17 laps around here, so this is early. A bit of undercuts and all that kind of thing from Danny Kitchen as well, who's pitted a little bit early, so possibly indicating a 4-stop for these guys, but the first strategy move starting to be made.
Just, again, a reminder back to the Portuguese Grand Prix where Jone Simoncic did pull a 4-stop strategy out, and again, we kind of were a little bit curious as to what that was all about. Asked him in the interview afterwards, and he said that the 4-stop strategy was faster. I spoke to Dennis Jordan as well prior to this race, and he was also suggesting that we're seeing 3 or 4 stops this race, and that the potential that once again the 4-stop strategy, running short on those stints, short on those tyres, and maximising the early phase of that tyre where they are at their fastest, is going to be critical to your chances this afternoon. And at the moment we're seeing a couple of drivers roll the dice with that, and I wonder if we're going to see a couple more of this lap. None so far from the pack ahead. Janus Brackshot continues to lead from Alex Ebel and Mitchy Hoyer on the soft compounds, those trio leading the way. There we go, we do have a couple into the pit lane. David Marocek and Dennis Jordan jump in, conferring themselves onto a 4-stop strategy. Early calls, very, very interesting.
Well, oh my goodness, he's just about got into... Has he got into his box? No, he's just got to go forwards. This is terrible now for Dennis Jordan. He finally gets in and he gets service, but that's going to have cost him 2-3 seconds, maybe more. Motec goes. They came in nose to tail, let's not forget, and he's just going up the road. Look at that, Motec straight in front, and Dennis Jordan on another set of the soft compound tyres has really made a big mistake there. Let's see what the actual gap is as they come out of the pit lane. It's going to be roughly 5 seconds. A costly mistake from the German, and he goes wide into turn 1 as well, compounding the mistake ever so slightly. Motec is onto his second set of hard tyres then, but Jordan now is going to be driving with a full head of steam, and he's going to be pretty outraged with himself after that. I would have to expect a really uncharacteristic mistake, you have to say.
Yeah, we're coming after Cameron Rodger, our broadcast director, after this, thinking, why did you have to show that of all things that I've done this season? Why did it have to be that was on the broadcast? Just overdid it into his box. Seen that from a few drivers before. It's a fairly easy mistake to make, but kind of one that's just like a careless one to make at this level, and unfortunately that will cost him time, and especially when he's going onto the soft compound tyre, it's just really dropping him down the order. We were looking at this driver's teammate Mohamed Patel, who's already been into the pit lane. Peter Beliak is into the pit lane now in the 55 BS Plus Williams car, as he'll slow things down. Is he going to take hards? Is he going to take softs? Is he going to miss his box? He does not. He's going to go onto the hard compound tyre, so get both of his hards out of the way early. Smart move. Seeing that from a couple already in the early stages of this race. I'm not so sure it's the strategy that's going to work out, though, because my point from this is that it's so hard to overtake. I'd kind of want to do the Mitchy Hoyer strat that has worked this season already, as Marocek gets ahead of Peter Beliak, and I think Dennis Jordan might stay ahead as well. Runs it through and certainly does, just about stays ahead, but not by much. Yeah, I'd want to run soft if I'm towards the front, because Mitchy Hoyer has done it this season, where he's run soft and hard, and basically what he's doing is he's building up a big enough gap that when he comes onto those hard tyres in the latter point of the race, that he's effectively built a big enough gap that he can defend with that time, and he can drive his own race, he can control his own race and his fortune and destiny with it. And I like the sound of that strategy. I'd want to do that. We know it's hard to overtake. We saw at the early stage of this race that Dennis Jordan couldn't make a move at all.
Alex Siebel into the pit lane from second place. He was right on the back of Jonas Braxok as he came in, suggesting maybe that he had a little bit more pace in that car, and he might try and use it now on the outlap. Simoncic carries on for another lap, but Adam Maguire is into the pit lane. I believe that is Tom Savely carries on from 7th place, but there is Alex Siebel getting service. Soft tyres for him. That's a very smart call. I would say that Siebel, Braxok, Hoyer, Martin as well, I'd be on the soft tyres if I was all 4 of those guys, just to try and consolidate the position that they find themselves in right now. But this is a very crucial point of the race. We know that tyre wear's big around here. Alex Siebel is on new soft tyres. Braxok is suffering and he's struggling on those old soft compound tyres. So can Siebel get a good enough undercut with this strategy now to maybe leapfrog himself into the lead? We've got about a minute to find out.
Adam Maguire into the pit lane as well, as he'll exit down in 14th position. With that pit stop coming in from Alex Siebel, there is Adam Maguire out of the pit lane. With that pit stop from Alex Siebel, it is important to note, of course, that if they're aiming for 3-stop strategies, they kind of need to pit around about lap 15. We know the tank can go a little bit further. I think it's 16 or 17 laps that it can go. So I think what he's doing here is he's just trying to get onto some fresh rubber and try and make a difference, and he knows that he'll have to do 15-16 laps on this tyre, but it's just trying to get that undercut on Jonas Braxok, who is coming straight into the pit lane. Michi Hoyer is also following him down his pit lane. They're all pitting slightly before the 15-lap mark. I mean, hey, maybe they're all going for the 4-stop strategy. It's a bit of a counter. I don't think they're going for the 4-stop. I think it's still the aim for the 3-stop and just trying to pit early and not be beaten by this undercut, which we know is going to be pretty big. That's going to be Carlos Martin in the pit lane. Jene Simoncic is going to take the lead of the race, a position we normally see him in the World Championship in the years prior to this. However, the double world champion hasn't seemed in his strongest form in 2021, and realistically, he's certainly not seemed like the lead burst driver, because that is definitely Michi Hoyer.
That is a huge undercut for Alex Siebel. Just look at that, 1.5 seconds.
Huge.
And the German finds himself in the net race lead here. We presume once that Ibrahim Khan, Luca D'Amelio, Tom Savely and Jene Simoncic come into the pit lane, that the Evolution Motorsports driver, who's never taken an FSR World Championship victory before, is going to be in the lead, and handsomely as well. More than 2 seconds back to Jonas Braxok. And then we've got about another 2 seconds back to Michi Hoyer. Here's his teammate, Dennis Jordan, right on the back of Carlos Martin. Wasn't quite able to get the undercut on the Spaniard that he wanted. And I think it's going to be another few laps of misery now for Dennis Jordan, trying to find a way through on Martin. But it's just going to be so difficult for him that I think he's going to be stuck there for most of this stint. He's also behind David Mroshek as well, although he's caught up to him a little bit because of these soft compound tyres. He is going very quickly at the moment, but he's going to find himself with the same problem he did last stint. He's stuck in traffic again.
Just going to be no way through for him. He'll try and find one, although this is where the difference in tyres may be ideal for him. Look at how much faster he is than Carlos Martin at the moment. As we run down the hill, he's going to have a good opportunity to escape. But look at how much time he just lost there. Coming onto the back straight, just losing so much. The front end absolutely not sticking to the road surface, and absolutely no way to close in, and then clobbers the curb for good measure. Certainly not ideal. Liam DeVal into the pit lane. This is on replay. Let's see what happened to him. Goes onto the soft tyres. What if he retires from the race or something of the like, because he is out, and yeah, he does. Pulls out of the race, does Liam DeVal. Not ideal. The burst edge. Burst edge. Not in this championship. Yeah, indeed, battling out here. Carlos Martin and Dennis Jordan trying to fight it through. Carlos Martin's going to be hanging on. There's contact between the two, and no way through for Dennis Jordan. Definitely gave it a good go. My point I was going to make, by the way, that eSports that we saw in there, that is a lap down. Let's not worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good attempt, though, from Dennis Jordan. We've not seen this from him just in this first quarter of the race so far, but now he's starting to get a little bit aggressive, get a little bit up onto the back of the car in front and being, a little bit more decisive with his moves. He's stuck behind David Mroshek for the whole of the first stint, probably realising at this point that if he doesn't make a move very soon, he's really going to be in trouble in this race. So he's trying to make the moves while he can, but, difficult to do, as we've seen already. Good defence from Carlos Martin there. He left the inside open through turn 1, which might be a bit counterintuitive, but it gives you the inside for turn 2 and 3. So if you can hang it round there for that first corner, then you can make it through the Mercedes arena. A little bit of contact between the two of them, but it looked like a fairly clean battle to me. as the leaders all come in now. Yerny Simoncic, Luca D'Amelio, Ibrahim Khan all into the pit lane after 16 laps, I do believe it is indeed. And so they're pitting on to soft tyres now for the two-time World Championship champion. We'll see where he comes out. Is he going to be stuck in the Dennis Jordan situation, which I'm now calling it? Is he going to be stuck in traffic?
Yes. I think he may well be. You see it just coming through the foreground of your shot, coming out behind Petr Beliak as well for good measure. So a few drivers he'll have to get by if he wants to make anything work in the Grand Prix at the moment. We're still a long way to go in the race. Janis Braksjok's just set the fastest lap of the race at 1:27.643, 0.4 of a second faster than Alex Siebel, our current race leader. They switched around. Michi Hoyer is still very much a part of that battle as 1.7 seconds back from Janis Braksjok. He's also just set a 1:27.668, considerably faster, as we've got Ricardo Costa and Ibrahim Khan battling out. Hard tyres for Khan, soft tyres for Ricardo Costa. He's going to go around the outside as they come down the hill. That could be a fantastic effort. And before we get to Dunlop, great display between these two. Ricardo Costa's going to grab the position on the hard-tyred Zansho SimSport driver. He's got the inside for Dunlop as they run round the banking. Oh, we're going to go side by side up the hill towards Schumacher. It is going to go the way of Ricardo Costa. Ibrahim Khan still committed to the inside there and through Schumacher. That's not really a good idea because it's just not going to work. It's going to open the door for Luca D'Amelio as well behind, the ex-Zansho SimSport driver himself. But yeah, a good attempt at least, I guess, to try and get it side by side into Schumacher. Although, in all my years of commentary, I've never seen that one work.
Well, that was quite remarkable between the two of them, giving each other plenty of space, but also racing each other very hard indeed. As down the inside again goes Khan, not giving this position up, and now the cutback from Ricardo Costa. They're squirming out of the corner. Nobody can get a handle on their car at the moment, and around the outside goes Luca D'Amelio, or he tries to anyway, pushed out wide a little bit, and now here comes Danny Kish in the background. He's going to take 13th place away from D'Amelio, who's going to be a little bit disappointed with how that particular battle's gone. They go side by side into the corner. Ricardo Costa's got 12th place nicely, and Danny Kish has got 13th quite nicely as well now. So Luca D'Amelio is going to be fairly, I don't want to say annoyed, but you know, he's not going to be too pleased with being pushed out of the final corner there. But either way, that's the way it's gone. And so he's down to 14th. While that all was going on, by the way, Simoncic got ahead of Berliak, and we've not really seen that kind of move being made anywhere, really. I think it was down into turn number one, but he's being a lot more efficient in traffic than Dennis Jordan has been so far.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be particularly pleased. Just very much squeezed off. Let's have a look at how Yerny Simoncic got by Petr Beliak. It's going to be an easy move into turn one. Beliak doesn't even fight it. He's on the hard tyres at the moment for BS Plus Williams and just allows him through. Does not fight at all. Goes for a little bit of a cutback, but I don't think that's through the intent of making the overtake back again. More so just trying to take the fastest line on the exit of the corner, not going to fight Yerny Simoncic, and I don't blame him, the double world champion working his way through. Dennis Jordan still not being able to fight Carlos Martin. Did close up a few times, but there has been absolutely no way through for him. He's been pushing for all of his worth, and we've seen him sat behind drivers all afternoon and still no way through into Yokohama. It was up at the Michelin and Varstein section of the circuit where he was so much faster on those first laps out of the pit lane for Carlos Martin, but now his tyres have definitely come up to temperature and such. It's just no way through for the 27.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just difficult at the moment. We're seeing that up and down the field. It is just difficult to get through as things stand. And so the undercut is even more important than... We haven't really seen this so far, at least in the last two seasons that I've been here commentating on FSR. I've not really seen the undercut have such significance that it's having today. It's got Alex Siebel, this race lead that he's got right now, but he's suffering from it a little bit. Braksjok is starting to reel him in right now. 1.1 seconds is the gap between the two as they go up towards the chicane for the 19th time of asking. About to hit 1/3 distance in this race, and it's still ever intriguing as it has been throughout the whole of this race so far. Yeah, we've seen David Moshek do an undercut on Carlos Martin, and that's how he's got up into 4th place. So these guys are going to be trying to get in as early as possible, and if we're thinking that Fuel's going to do 17 laps, for these guys up front, I expect to see them in on lap 26 probably, so that they can do two 17-lap stints towards the end of this race. So I don't think Siebel and Braksjok are too far away from pit stops once again.
I think it's very much increasingly becoming a 3-horse race at the front of the field. That 15-second gap back to David Marocek.
Yeah, it is. It's a big gap to bridge for Rotec, and it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get there, or anybody to get there at the moment. So it seems to be between Siebel, Braxog and Hoyer. I don't think we've seen all that we can see from Michi Hoyer so far, though. I think he's still got a little bit more to give in this race. I think he's just saving his tyres a little bit, seeing how things are going, biding his time just ever so slightly. And I think that he might be able to recover in the last part of this race and really put in a good performance towards the end, maybe even make a move. But we've seen how difficult that is so far this race. Still watching Dennis Jordan, though, who is on the back of Carlos Martin. Despite the fact he's on soft tyres, he can't get through for the moment. He needs to use two hard tyres, in this weekend. And so they're going to have to come towards the end of this race. He's going to have to put them on at the next stop unless he's doing a 4-stop race. So it's going to be very, very difficult for him to really get a top 5 out of this one, I expect, unless he's going to be doing a lot of defending throughout the second half of this race. Here he's in the final corner. We'll see if he can really get a run off it, but not really. Kind of misses the apex almost of the Coca-Cola curve. And now Ewan Simincic is on his case just ever so slightly. Not too far behind right now, but not close enough either to be making a move. Also had a retirement, by the way, for Sergio Fletcher in these last few moments. So not sure what happened to him, but I'm afraid it's not gone too well for the replacement driver who's standing in for Blake Checketts here today. Let's see indeed what happened to him. It might be a retirement in the pit lane, I'm afraid. He's just coming out. Oh, his engine's off, actually, so don't quite know what's happened to him there. But into the garage he goes, and that's the end of Sergio Fletcher's run in the World Championship for 2021, at least at the German Grand Prix. But our other replacement driver, Ewan Blainoff, is currently in 19th place, 1 lap down at the moment of the leaders. So not too good of a performance from him today, I'm afraid, either. Watching this battle, though, for the position number 5. It's between Carlos Martin, Dennis Jordan, Ewan Simincic. Cam Rodgers is just going to join me for a moment. Lewis is disconnected, so Cam's joining me for a second. Simincic is looking racy, though, here, Cam. He's right on the back of Dennis Jordan right now. Might even make a move down into the chicane. Maybe he'll wait for turn 1 as well, but certainly looking more aggressive than Jordan has been on the back of Martin.
Yeah, the issue for Dennis is he's been out for quite a few laps now. Yeah, and he's got newer tyres, and as we mentioned in that first stint, the tyre wear really hampers you and you will start just going slower. So this is going to be a good opportunity for Simincic to get this move down into turn number 1, or maybe a little bit later. The issue for him is that Dennis is actually close enough to get some slipstream, so Yanni's got to be a bit careful here, but he definitely has a bit of a tyre advantage staying out so long in that first stint.
Yeah, his tyres are going to be new, and we've mentioned it. Oh, he's looking down into turn 3, starting to look at maybe different places of making the move. The Mercedes Arena is a good place for racing, but wasn't quite close enough into that corner there. Just weaving, showing in the mirrors of the German in front. These two great rivals, of course, had some great battles in 2020, where Dennis Jordan finished 5th in the 2020 World Championship. Obviously, Simincic finished in the first position, as he has done for the last 2 seasons. Trying to repeat that once again, but his main rival at the moment, Michi Hoyer, is going up the road, and Alex Siebel's gaining points on him as well right now. Very, very important, though, for Simincic to get through. Still unsure whether he's going to be making a 4-stop in this one, but it's nevertheless important for him to get past Jordan and Martin so he can make use of these soft tyres.
Yeah, I think he stayed out long enough that they're going to be going for this 3-stop. You mentioned earlier about that all-important lap to do 2 17 laps at the end. Well, I think Yerne, being on that hard tyre at the beginning, was using that 17 laps to get himself in a better position. These soft tyres really don't last the full stint at a good pace. So if you can try and use those hard tyres, albeit they're slower, but they still at least get you towards the end of that stint. And now Yerne Simincic is going to be looking very close here into turn number 1. I do wonder if Dennis is going to fight this, or if he's going to let Yerne go a little bit, because they don't want to be fighting, lose themselves time. But Yerne sends it down the inside, and Dennis is going to have to defend here on the outside of turn number 1, and that's going to just lose him a little bit of time to Carlos Martin. But Yerne's going to have to work for this one. Dennis isn't going to be giving this to him, but look at that traction off the turn 2 there. Yerne so much better, but now this is going to be on the outside of turn number 4. We have a lot more grip, and Dennis is going to have to let him go. And that was a lovely move there by Yerne Simincic.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic manoeuvre around the outside at turn 4, getting through on Dennis Jordan. Very important for him to do so. Dennis Jordan possibly holding him back to try and help out his teammate Alex Siebel, although I think Simoncic is just too far gone now, and Siebel is going to be too far up the road for him. So, yeah, good move there from Simoncic. Good racing between the two of them as well. Very respectful there, Lewis, and a great battle to watch, but Simoncic comes out on top.
Yeah, of course, these two have raced more so with each other than against each other, and they worked very well in that scenario, so it's no surprise, realistically, to see them racing so well against each other. Hard fought, that position from Ewan Simoncic, as they all would be around the circuit, but now he has to try himself to get past Carlos Martin directly ahead and try and march on with these soft compound tyres that he currently has. At the moment, every lap that goes by, that top three pulling away. We're approaching half distance in the German Grand Prix. Siebel, Brakshock and Hoyer very much in control of things. Rotchek's just driving around by himself, and then the hard tyre shod Carlos Martin just directly behind, going to be coming under pressure from Jene Simoncic, Dennis Jordan, Peter Berliak, Adam Maguire and Tom Satherley, your top 10 after a great qualifying session. Interesting to see that Ibrahim Khan has dropped down to 11th position. This is where, though, the part of the race that we kind of don't really know the full order of things, as the perspective of the race can shift in the sense that with the tyres and stuff, with the strategy playing out, you could be running in 14th position and then, 10 laps later, courtesy of strategy, you're battling for 5th.
Yeah, it can change very, very quickly with the strategies around here. But I think that Khan has used both of his hard tyre stints so far in this race. From memory, anyway, I'm pretty sure he's used 2 hard tyre stints. So watch for him to be very fast towards the end and maybe trying to displace people like Tom Savley and Adam Maguire, who I think's used 2 soft tyres in this one. And he's going to be running hard for the latter portion of this race. But Carlos Martin's going to have to be doing some defending once again. Previously, it was from Dennis Jordan, but now it's going to be from Jene Simoncic, who's looking a lot stronger, particularly at getting past these different cars, and already done it to Dennis Jordan. Got through on Peter Berliak fairly easily as well. Now he's going to try and give the same treatment to Carlos Martin if he can. He's got some great traction out of these corners as Dennis Jordan is into the pit lane. Possibly a 4-stop strategy. I don't know if he can quite make it on fuel from there, but we'll wait and find out. On board with Simoncic now. Martin knows this is a big moment. He goes to the inside to defend. The 2-time world champion finds a space on the inside, though, on the very tight line. He's going to grab the corner, grab the space, make sure that Martin can't do a cutback, and Simoncic is into 5th place.
Could see that one coming from the onboard from Jene Simoncic, perfectly judged as the circuit jinked away onto the right-hand side and absolutely slammed it down on the brakes. Brilliant overtake from Jene Simoncic. David Rotchek, by the way, he's a few positions ahead, or a few seconds rather ahead. My point with him is that obviously Dennis Jordan has just come into the pit lane there on a slightly earlier stop. The first stint from David Rotchek was 11 laps. This stint currently being 13 laps complete. I wonder if he's going to come in a little bit earlier. We're expecting more of a 4-stop strategy from Rotchek with that earlier pit stop on lap 11. We'll see if that one unfolds accordingly. It was the same distance that Dennis Jordan did on that first stint. By the way, he has come out on the hard compound tyre after a 13-lap stint on the softs, and we'll see if he can get an undercut from his current position. What does David Rotchek do? Is he going to peel to the right-hand side of the circuit and come into the pit lane? No, he is not. He is staying out and going to try and extend this stint, potentially returning to a 3-stop strategy after things were looking like it was going to be a 4.
I don't think pitting right now would be the best idea for David Rotchek, in all honesty. If you look at where Dennis Jordan has come out, 15th place, he's in a bit of free space, and that's all fine. But if you just look a few seconds up in front, you've got Phil Krauss, Luca D'Amelio, and Daniel Kish, all very in close proximity. And David Rotchek, if he pits now, he's going to come out right in that gaggle there. So I don't think it's going to benefit him at all pitting right now. If he can avoid it, obviously there's only so long he can go on fuel here, and I believe he can only do about 3 laps more, maybe 4. But he needs to be a little bit careful with that traffic there, because there is a lot of it down in just outside the top 10. And if he can avoid it, then he needs to, because we've seen it's difficult to overtake around here. I'm going to stop saying we can't overtake around here. It's just difficult, because clearly Simoncic is finding a way. Everybody else is finding it quite difficult, but Simoncic is finding a way of getting up the order at the moment.
Well, you know, two moves from one bloke who's apparently quite good at this open wheel arc and sim racing in general. He is playing it very, very cautious when it comes to his tyres because bearing in mind he is currently 10 laps, he's on his 10th lap of this stint. He has just set his personal best lap of his race so far. So he's been a little bit more patient with how the tyres are and how the race is coming to him. It does seem very much like he is running a three-stop strategy, obviously a 16-lap first stint, so he's splitting the race into thirds. Rodger now comes into the pit lane 3 laps shy of the halfway point. He can still make it a 3-stop race from this point, and he goes on to the soft compound tyre. Naturally, he has run both of his hard compound tyres, so those are both complete. We'll see if Rodger can come back into this a little bit later on in the race with the top 3, because he's on the soft tyres now. He can try and close in, and maybe with the final stop coming out on those soft compound tyres, maybe go for an undercut. Also see in the background Danny Kish also into the pit lane and out on the soft compound tyres. Out ahead of Dennis Jordan, Davin Rodger hangs on.
Yeah, just about. Jordan getting a bit of an undercut there, which has got him close to Mrozek, but not quite in front. So Mrozek has got 4 seconds up to those guys like D'Amelio and Kraus. So he's going to be really desperately hoping that they pit before he gets there. Otherwise, he might have a bit of trouble on his hands in the next few laps. I think Alex Siebel's going to have a bit of trouble on his hands as well soon, because the gap's closing massively. Janis Braksok stays out. Alex Siebel comes into the pit lane on lap 27. At the end of lap 27, he is in, and that's actually 1 lap later than I expected, but still 2 hard tyre stints to come from him. He's going for the undercut. I'd expect new hards to actually be better than those older softs at this point. It's just another case of being stuck in traffic and whether he can avoid that, and how quick is Braksok going to be at this stage in the race. Hoyer's closed up to Braksok as well. He's closed a 2-second margin down to about 8 tenths in the last few laps. I stand by what I said earlier. I think Hoyer's been holding something back in these opening laps, and he's going to unleash some real pace in the second half of this race and maybe still take the win.
We'll have to wait and see. Looking for his 3rd consecutive victory in the FSR World Championship. It'll be his 4th in total. Bit of a note on your point there is new softs versus new hards versus old softs. A driver that we can draw a direct comparison to is obviously that of Dennis Jordan, who's been into the pit lane, come out on new hards. Those are currently setting him sort of mid to high 28s on the lap times. Janis Brakshok's previous lap time was a 29.2 to back up your point, and I do fully agree, considering these tyres are obviously a little bit older. They've done a few laps, obviously only 3, but they're losing their speed quite quickly, as these two are both going to come into the pit lane. That is no surprise. They're going to try and cover off as much as possible to Alex Siebel, who I think is going to come out a fair way ahead, nearly crashing on pit lane entry as they come towards that line that's a bit late, dropping in behind and now into the actual pit lane. But yeah, Siebel is going to come out surely way ahead of these two now.
Yeah, surely at this point about a second, maybe 2 seconds, but he did this last time, let's not forget. He had a 2-second gap to Braksok, and the Hungarian was able to just slowly reel him in. Now, will Hoyer get out ahead of Braksok? He's going to slightly underfuel himself. Well, there's not much fuel to play with here, actually. He's thinking about it, because with the amount of laps left, these guys trying to do it on one more stop after this. They can't really play around with fuel, but look at that gap. It's a pretty big one at the moment, and they're stuck behind Anna Maguire as well, who's going to just get out in front of them. Braksok sails into turn 1. He gets a bit of a gap over Michi Hoyer, but he's a good 5-6 seconds behind Alex Siebel, and that is going to be a big gap to close.
It certainly is. But there's still plenty of time left in the race. We're approaching the halfway mark, so still enough to try and close that in, but it is a hefty margin. Alex Siebel very much in control of things as things stand, and it shows that both times that he's undercut the Janis Brakshoks, the Michi Hoyers, it's only been by a lap. He's only undercut by a single lap on both occasions. The first time he pulled out 2 seconds, now it's 6 and a bit. That was fairly easy between Adam Maguire and Janis Brakshok. Naturally so, the two are HME drivers. I think he'll be a little bit less courteous with the German closing in on him behind.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd expect that from even though they're not actual teammates in terms of scoring points for the Constructors' Championship, they're teammates in HME, but he is actually fairly courteous as well to Michi Hoyer, which is very nice of him from Adam McGlade, because he didn't have to do that, and he jumps across the chicane as well. No idea what's happening to him right now. Going across the gravel, he was in a good place, looking to pick up some good points as well from this one, but it looks like this might be another retirement, I'm afraid, from the German Grand Prix, stopping on the right-hand side of the road, and Adam McGlade is going to be out here, I'm pretty sure. A big shame to see as we hit half distance. But at least he did get out of the way of those guys in good order. But shame to see him retire from the race.
I'm confused. I don't understand. We're potentially it was fuel. Not 100% sure. Cutting it pretty fine if it was fuel. But either way, out of the race and probably a broken back. Got quite a list of retirements here. We've got a couple from HME. We've got both Edge eSports drivers. We've got Jeff Fournier, Danny Van Den Eek, Fletcher as well. A long list of retirements here at the German Grand Prix. Saw that a few years ago when we did the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. So clearly the country claims cars in the FSR World Championship, because we do have mighty lists when we come here.
Yeah, apparently so. Only 17 remaining at this point, and Robin Panzel's a good half minute off the back of the field. So, we have got quite an attrition rate going on right now as we're on board with David Mocek just behind Luca D'Amelio, who's yet to come into the pit lane for the second round of pit stops in this race, presuming that he is making 3 and not 4, but we presume that to be the case at this point. Leader Ewan Simincic also in at half distance. I thought he was going to stay out there and be annoying for Alex Siebel to try and get Michi Hoyer in the picture, but it doesn't seem that is going to be the case. Mocek gets very, very close once again to D'Amelio as those guys bounce across the curbs and go into the final corner. Here comes Simincic, by the way. He's going to come out ahead of D'Amelio and Mocek, I think, if he can be quick enough out the pit lane. Here comes Mocek, though, looking to be the outside line. Could even be free wide down here into turn 1. Here we go. D'Amelio defending the position on the inside line, but it might not matter. Look at the extra grip that David Mocek has got. He sails around the outside of the first corner and he gets up into 4th place.
That was important because his teammate or sister teammate has just come out of the pit lane and it was close. I was wondering if he was going to be staying ahead of this group. It wasn't quite enough, and just stayed behind Luca D'Amelio, who is on very old hard tyres, 14-lap old tyres in comparison to David Mocek's fairly fresh softs in comparison. And so watching them go into turn 1, Mocek was sliding it through on the brakes. I don't think it was possible to brake much later than he did, and as I say, he saw his teammate come out of pit lane and thought, right, now's the time, I need to make this stick, running up through the Schumacher S. And this is where the soft tyres will be a little bit faster, coming down through this section of the circuit, but it's on the exit of Varsity in the next corner where the front end just doesn't grip up. Pulling it a little bit too far over to the left hand side was Luca D'Amelio, and it looked like it might just be enough from Jone Simincic to try and make an attempt up towards NGK. We go through Ab Van Bogen and then back up the hill. Luca D'Amelio pulls it over to the right hand side. Jone Simincic doesn't commit to it, but nearly makes contact with the back of the Go Speed car. Not fancying his attempt there, but it'll probably come down at turn 1.
It looks like that's going to be the case as well. Big slipstream, of course, and D'Amelio doesn't get the greatest exit. Those hard tyres now starting to suffer a little bit with the tyre wear that's going on right now. He's leaving the inside line open to Simincic, and he brakes early, lets the world champion have that position. And so Simincic is up into 5th place. You'll notice as well that Mocek and Simincic have got kind of ahead of everybody else. Martin and Bullock have managed to get themselves stuck behind Dennis Jordan, which is kind of amusing because Jordan's been spending most of his race stuck behind them. So he's kind of returning the favour right now. And so I think there's going to be a lot of nerves and a lot of aggressive driving going on a little bit later on. Let's hope not. Let's hope they all stay on the road. But it's kind of a ironic moment there with Jordan heading a group instead of tailing it on this occasion. But Mocek and Simincic have managed to remove themselves from that, and they're catching Siebel, Braxop and Hoyer at a fairly alarming rate. It was about 20 seconds before the last round of pit stops. It's already down to 16, and let's not forget, both of those drivers are going to be on soft tyres towards the end of this race for both of their stints, and the 3 leaders are going to be on hard. So it's going to be very, very difficult. Well, not difficult for them to hold them back, but they are going to be caught at this rate.
I'm wondering what the highest finish that Dennis Jordan can really aim for at the moment in this race. I'm thinking maybe it's only 6th place. He's got a long afternoon ahead of him still. He's currently 7 laps into this stint, his first on the hard tyres. Obviously still has to run another set of hards, and we know that he's kind of running a 4-stop strategy here, so he'll be picking one set of softs at some point over the latter point of the race to try and undercut the likes of Luca Di Meglio and maybe even Jone Simoncic. I think there's battling up ahead between Davor Mrocek and Jone Simoncic. They were very, very close. As to the inside, Carlos Martin's not going to make that one stick into turn 1. Still hanging on, Dennis Jordan at least for now. Like I say, very much roles reversed as things stand. It was a personal best lap again on the previous lap from Jone Simoncic at 28.060. That was a good half a second faster than his previous personal best, and a good half a second faster than our race leader Alex Siebel, a second faster than Janis Brakshock and Michi Hoyer, and 7/10 faster than the kart directly ahead of David Mrocek. So very, very much closing in as things stand, but obviously he still has a hard tyre to run before the checkered flag. Those that have completed their hard tyre stints, David Mrocek has done both of his hard tyres. Luca Di Meglio is currently on his second set of hard tyres and is approaching the end of it. We're expecting him in at the end of this lap. Carlos Martin has completed both of them. Peter Berliak has completed both. Tom Satherley is on his second set now. Ibrahim Khan has completed both. And then the rest of the order, with the exception of Mohammed Patel, is yet to go onto their second set of hard tyres. So still plenty of drivers needing to head onto it. I'm expecting, as I say, Luca Di Meglio in this lap round.
And I believe he is. I think he took a tight line out of the chicane and he'd be into the pit lane right now, and he is indeed. There he is, getting off of the hard tyres for the last time today, he hopes at least, as Carlos Martin is now in the slipstream of Dennis Jordan. Just pulls out a little bit, decides to show the nose, but not quite making the move for the moment. I've got a bit of a theory as well, by the way, about Alex Siebel, how he's ended up with an 8-second lead. I don't think that was all down to the undercut. I think he short-filled that car. He might be going for a 4-stop strategy in this one, because I don't think that... I know that Brakshock lost some time behind Mrocek, I think it was. Or was it was somebody anyway, who he got stuck behind for a lap or so, and he will have lost a little bit of time in that, maybe 2 seconds, but I don't think the undercut is quite that big. And by the fact that Siebel, despite the fact he's got 1 lap more on his tyres, he's still extending that margin out to Brakshock, out to 8.5 right now, suggests to me that he's got less fuel in his car. He's already in again. 4-stop strategy for definite for exit. Or was this a replay? Yes, it's a replay. So it was a short pit stop, 9 seconds for Alex Siebel. I think that's short. I think he's short-filled that car a little bit, and he'll be going for 4 stops in this race.
I think we normally expect them to be in the pit lane for about 13 seconds. Let's see what Janis Brakshock does. It was 9 for Siebel. We're with Brakshock. We're up to 10, 11, 12, 13, I think it is. There we go, 13. God, I do remember things from the previous round. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going for a 4-stop, because the thing is we know with how it works that one of the stops is going to be short, although to be fair, he's already run a 13 and a 14. So actually, no, based on that, we are probably aiming for a 4-stop. Is that risky?
Well, I think it is at this point. I think it is. He might not even come out ahead of Mrocek at this point. The way Mrocek is catching him, I think it is a bit of a risk from Alex Siebel, and I don't think he needed to do it at this particular point. He was getting the undercut. He was already in the lead. He would have had that undercut. He would have kept in the lead. I don't think he needed to do it. I think that we can put any doubts about the 3-stop away, really, because of the lap that he came in. I think it was like 27, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's 33 laps to go. There's not much room to play with there at all in terms of your fuel. You need to really fill the tank very, very full. Not quite to the brim both times, but, I mean, really quite full. Not 9 seconds worth, certainly. So 4 stops for Alex Siebel, but I don't think that's the right call for him. Just trying to work things out at the moment. Maybe 25 seconds to David Mrocek at the moment. I don't quite know what a pit stop is around here, but I think it could be more than 25 seconds, and he might end up stuck behind the Burst eSport cars. He's on the hard tyres as well. They'll be on the softs. He's in a bad place right now, I think, Alex Siebel. Brakshock, I think, is still the favourite to take this race win at the moment.
So I'm going to run 2 separate things past you as we're watching this battle for 6th place. Dennis Jordan, Carlos Martin, Peter Berliak, currently all still fighting out. No way through at the moment for Carlos Martin. He'll try and make a move at T1, but it's not worked for the previous few attempts. He's always looked, but never had enough, and he's obviously got a lot of pressure. Never mind, Dennis Jordan into the pit lane once again, and we'll see if Peter Berliak will be able to make a move again. I'm not so sure. It's been a bit tricky for them today. So Alex Siebel, Pitted with, you say 33 laps to go. We know that it's 16 laps seems to be like the most you can do, although we know that Alex Siebel's quite good at saving fuel. The only thing that would shrink that pit stop is a lack of fuel. Dennis Jordan there, who is on a 4-stop, has just done a 9-second stint. So one of two things. Either number one, he didn't have to put in as much fuel, and that could be from like a full tank from the start of the race, then a full tank. Because obviously, if you do full tank and then full tank, 37 litres, I think it is, you may have like 10 litres left in your tank when you come in for the stop that he's just come in for, which means that then you've only got to put 27 litres in, which that could shrink the stop. Doesn't quite explain why Brackshock's time was so much slower, why it was still 13 seconds. So there is obviously that to play in. But just playing from that side of things, if he is still on a 3-stop strategy, which could be possible from his position, that might explain why the pit stop was faster. Second point, though, if he is on a 4-stop strategy, if he goes onto the soft tyres on the next stint, considering the pace differential between the softs and the hards, fresh softs, lighter car, that might be able to allow him to pull out that gap, because he's not going to be on them for long enough for them to drop off in the way that we've seen aggressively from some of the drivers that have pushed him up to 16 laps.
I don't think it's going to matter too much, though, because I think he's going to come out behind both Burst eSports cars. It's all well and good having the best tyres in the world on your car, but if you're stuck in traffic and you can't get through, like we've seen Dennis Jordan struggling to get through, if the Evolution Motorsports cars are struggling to get past these Burst eSports cars, then what's good about having those soft tyres on if you can't get through? You're just going to be stuck there. So I don't know if that's going to work out for him, but you are right, he is going to be able to get a soft tyre stint in there, and he's not going to experience quite the drop-off that you otherwise would. And about your first point, I take it that he might have come in with a little bit of fuel in the tank, but firstly, that would be a monumental fuel effort without any slipstream at all. He was leading for the whole of that stint, let's not forget. And it would be an absolutely monumental effort for him to be able, even for Alex Siebel, to manage that. And, it still doesn't explain why Siebel is pulling out this gap to Braxock, even though he's got 1 lap more in his tyres. It doesn't make any sense at all. I can't see Braxock's just lost all pace. Well, he's not lost all pace, but, I can't see that Braxock has suddenly become slower than Siebel throughout this race in any way, really. I just think that, Siebel's got less fuel in that car. They're both going at a roughly similar pace in terms of their talent level right now. They're all pretty good. So I think that Siebel's just got a little bit less fuel in that car. It's making him go a tiny, tiny bit quicker. It's not much, but he's starting to pull that margin out a little bit to Braxock and Hoyer.
Yeah, I was just playing a bit of devil's advocate there, don't worry. I think he is genuinely on a 4-stop strategy. Yeah. Confused as to why. Another bit of information to back this up. Comparing, because obviously the way it is, we've got refueling, so obviously that's how we're kind of discussing all this stuff. If you've not followed that, then you need to wake up more than I do. Jone Simoncic, who started the race in the hard compound tyre, obviously he was in the battle pack, but still we can draw comparisons between Jone Simicic's early lap times when he was obviously on those hards, and we know how fast Jone Simoncic is. He was running mid-29s all the way through the stint. Obviously a bit of tyre conservation there as well. The fact that Alex Siebel is running 28.8s at the moment, I know the track might get a little bit faster, not realistically, not that much, not quite in that kind of vein. I think there is a bit of a lighter car there, maybe trying to avoid staying on the hard tyres for too long. He's currently 10 laps into his stint, and I wonder if he's going to be in fairly shortly. I think if he does come in onto the softs, because obviously the next pit stop he's going to do is going to be a shorter one anyway, I think he might have timed it, might come out into a little bit of free space. We'll have to wait and see, because he may come out far enough behind Jone Simoncic. Jone Simoncic we're expecting at some point. I don't know. The way I see it is that the idea of him moving from a 3-stop to a 4-stop is a bit baffling, and I am not with that idea. But it's easy for us to doubt, and we've done that a few times with this lot, and they always come out on top. So we'll have to wait and see. Ibrahim Khan, though, having a fantastic race today. Already done both of his hard tyres. Currently running in 9th place and applying pressure to Tom Satherley, who's on his second stint of hards. This is looking like a real turnaround drive for Ibrahim Khan after a struggle to the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a good performance so far. Stuck a little bit behind Tom Satherley, but that's kind of to be expected at this point. Satherley's going to be able to put some soft tyres on towards the end, by the way, and these two are going to have a great fight, I think, in the last 10-15 laps or so for this 8th position. It's what it's looking like for those guys, and everybody behind kind of fighting, although it might be a little bit changed because Dennis Jordan's out of position, isn't he, from his 4-stop strategy, although I think he's going to have to pass them on the road if he wants to past them in the order. I think that this is a move from Evolution Motorsports since the start of the race. Jordan is, stuck to exactly the same strategy as Siebel, pretty much, apart from the laps, a little bit different. But, they've both gone for 2 soft tyre stints at the end. They both went for their third stint on hards. I think they both planned this from the start to go 4-stop, and, they're not really sticking from it. You need this kind of adaptability on occasion to try and make these strategies work, as Siebel does now come into the pit lane. So 21 laps to go, confirming that he's going for a 4-stop strategy. What tyres is it? Soft tyres. A good call from him, but he needs to be out in front of these Burst eSport guys. If he isn't, then I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for him to win this race. He leads his box right now, and it's going to be so close, but I think he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think he is. We've got him on the relative. You can see it on the map there, just leaving pit lane. This is a very tense moment. You're going to have them coming through on the right-hand side of shot. He is just going to hang on. That could be an important moment for Alex Siebel's chances this race. It was the smart move to go into the soft tyres, and now what you're going to see is effectively a glorified qualifying session from the German on home soil, eyeing up a victory at the German Grand Prix, because he really needs to fire in some good lap times now, because he needs to close back up to Hoyer and Brackshock if he's got any chances of winning it. I'm still not sure about the strategy, but it's the one that he's put himself on for now. I'm not convinced myself. Khan is ahead of Savali.
I'm not convinced. Yeah, let's see what happens here first before we talk about that for a moment. Here's Ibrahim Khan on board at the moment, and I presume he's going to make a move into... Oh, actually, it might be into the final corner as Tom Savali goes wide into the chicane, and Khan grabs that with 2 hands and takes 8th place away from the New Zealander. Yeah, I'm not so sure it was a great strategy either, but that pit stop was timed to absolute perfection from Alex Siebel, making the best of this strategy right now. He knew that he needed to come out ahead of those Burst eSport guys, and you saw how close it was. We were all tensing up in the commentary box at the moment, wondering whether he's going to get out, but Alex Siebel knew exactly where he was going to come out. It was going to be half a second ahead of David Mojcek. He tried to stay on those tyres for as long as possible on that stint to try and get the benefit of the low fuel. And so when he knew that he wasn't going to come out ahead of Burst eSport anymore, just before that happened, he came into the pit lane, timed it to absolute perfection, and now he's on a charge. He makes a bit of a slide through turn 1. He needs less of those moments if he wants to win this race, but a very, very big moment in these next few laps. As you said earlier, they're going to be absolute qualifying laps. Let's not forget, though, Braxock and Hoyer are not going to be too far away from pit stops. 2 free laps, and so they're going to be putting new hard tyres on. And Siebel, it's not going to be long before that crossover point comes. When it comes to the point where those soft tyres are no longer as quick as the hards, Siebel will be in, and he'll be on newer tyres towards the end of the race. He's going to be on newer tyres, effectively, for the final third of this race.
We'll see how that one unfolds. He's got 12 seconds to catch up to the likes of Brackshock and Hoyer ahead. By the way, on obviously the first sector that he's put out this lap has been pretty average. It was a 29.2. It was only 0.7 of a second faster than the 2 ahead. Obviously, he's closing in very quickly at the moment. On the previous lap, he set a purple second and a purple final sector, eyeing up the fastest lap of the race, which is currently held by his teammate Dennis Jordan on a 27.613. We'll see if Alex Siebel can do it. Obviously, we know he's running a slightly lighter car. For Janis Brackshock, Michi Hoyer, that battle is also not done. And there's 1.4 seconds between them. But if Michi Hoyer has been paying attention this race, and we know that he certainly does, his chances of winning a 3rd consecutive Grand Prix are certainly not done yet. If he pits in early and comes in for the undercut to try and jump Janis Brackshock, that may work. Alex Siebel, fastest lap of the race, 27.174, 2 seconds faster than the 2 cars ahead of him. He is absolutely flying for Evolution Motorsport right now.
Yeah, so in about 4 laps he'll be there, but let's not forget that Hoyer and Brackshock are going to be into the pit lane, maybe even on not this lap, but the one after that. We believe that the fuel window is 17 laps, and if I was Brackshock, I'll be in as early as possible.
Yeah.
Cover off that undercut, and do not let Michi Hoyer get that advantage over you, because if he gets in front, he's going to be incredibly difficult to pass. When he's got a race win in sight, he's going to stop at nothing to try and win it. And so, it's going to be such a fantastic fight towards the end of this race. How fantastic has this strategy been today, by the way? Absolutely fascinating from start to finish. Even though we were saying in the first stint, it's hard to overtake. People are kind of stuck where they are. But how brilliant has the strategy been throughout this race? I think it's been absolutely fascinating, personally.
It is very, very interesting. This three-way fight that we're seeing. Still not sure as we rush towards the checkered flag as to which car is going to come out on top. It is most certainly a three-horse race between Siebel, Hoyer and Brackshock. However, which one it will be, we do not know. Pace already seeming to drop off a little bit for Alex Siebel over that lap as he didn't claw in quite as much of an advantage as he did in the previous. A 27.4. Closes him in 1.8 seconds, but that was 0.3 slower than the previous lap. The battle between the two burst cars of David Rodger and Jerne Simoncic as they try and fight out for fourth position. It's not been the best day for Robin Panzar, obviously involved in that incident earlier on. He had quite a good run back at Portugal. Distinctly remember him running, potentially even in a fight for the podium. Down in 16th place, obviously it's not been a good day for him. And it's a bit of a shame considering how well his teammates are all running. Looking back to the 2020 form, if I'm honest.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we're still watching this battle between the Burst Esports guys, David Mosek and Jerne Simoncic. They're not too far behind, but I think I think you're right. It's going to be difficult for those guys to get onto the podium. As we look at Carlos Martin and Petter Burlat, they would have been hoping for a little bit more today, I think, as well. But the fact that Mosek and Simoncic were able to get out ahead of Dennis Jordan, and these two were stuck behind, has really pulled a big gap between these two. And given that these four are on the same strategy, it's going to be very, very difficult for these two to get anywhere near to the Burst Esports cars in front. It's just not quite been the 2020 Petter Burlat, or maybe even the seasons previous to that Petter Burlat that we've seen in the past. So it's a bit of a shame for him. But Mitchy Hoyer's into the pit lane right now. Here we go, 17 laps to go. Hoyer's taken the first opportunity to come in, but so does Mosek, by the way. So Hoyer is going for the undercut. Brackshock is going for the shorter pit stop. If you oh God, that was close. If you stay out longer, let's not forget, you have to take less fuel to make it to the end of this race, and that's what Brackshock's hoping for right now.
Obviously, communication there between the two burst drivers as Morocek was coming in, although that, I think, will be looked at a little bit dimly, because that's pretty dangerous. If he'd have smashed into the pit lane wall on the right-hand side where the garages are, he would have been firing it into Mitchy Hoyer and ending both of their chances for any sort of points from this race, because that would have been a catastrophic incident. Our focus on Alex Siebel trying to fire into decent laps. He's again slower, down to a 27.9. So the pace is getting slower and slower, naturally, as we would expect. As the tyre drop off, especially when you're pushing this hard, is just going to be very, very strong. And this is where it comes to the point of I am not sure about this strategy. And I think the move to the four-stop might have just cost him a chance of victory today. And it's between Jonas Brackshock and Mitchy Hoyer. And with that earlier pit stop, I think it swings the way of Mitchy Hoyer quite significantly. Jonas Brackshock, let's take a look at him, see if he'll be into the pit lane this lap. There he is, straight into the pit lane, maybe being undercut in this scenario, been flying under the radar, sitting in third position pretty much all races, Mitchy Hoyer. If he comes out on top here, I think he is basically signing himself up for a potential fourth victory at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's in a great place right now. He's going to end up with, if he does win as well, he's going to end up with about a 30-point championship lead as well, which is not insignificant after only 3 races. Here he comes through the final corner then. Brackshock leaves his pit box right now. This is going to be so close as the Hungarian releases the pit limiter right now. Hoyer steaming around the outside. They're both going to break super late into turn 1. Brackshock's trying to make it on cold tyres. Hoyer gives him a load of room, but he also gets the net race lead. Second place on the road right now, but it's going to turn into the lead. This is the fight. Mitchy Hoyer versus Jonas Brackshock for the win in this race. 16 laps to go as we run right now. It's between these two, we think, but a good strategy call there from Mitchy Hoyer. Going for that undercut. It just about paid off for him in the end.
This is the Mitchy Hoyer that we were teased time and time again throughout 2020, and we were seeing him build himself up, get stronger and stronger. And in 2021, wow, I don't think there are many stronger drivers at the moment on rFactor 2, because he is going from strength to strength. For those of you that watched the rFactor 2 GT Pro Series, it was the day after our race at Portugal where he took that second victory. He ended up getting pole position and winning in the first race there at Spa. Of course, the next round of that comes up tomorrow. I'm wondering if he's going to carry some momentum into that, because I don't see much stopping this man at the moment. He's still got 22 seconds, of course, to Alex Siebel. The race is most certainly not done yet, but Siebel's pace that's been dropping off. He's now done a 28.2. Let's see what Michi Hoyer does on this lap. It's going to be a little bit slower, courtesy of running a little bit wide at turn 1, trying to hang on from Janis Brakshock. Across the line, he's at a 28.8, 6/10 slower than Alex Siebel, but I'm expecting these times to sort of stay in the mid-28s, to that gap to not really extend much further than it's currently at the 23 seconds. Now, obviously, Siebel's going to have a lighter car. It's probably going to have better tyres come towards the checkered flag. But, I mean, look, this is still a three-way fight. Let's not sort that one out right now, because we know it's still between Hoyer and Brakshock, and Siebel will close.
Simičić is out in front of Mrocek, but he's on hard tyres, which has surprised me, I have to say. I thought he was going for softs.
No, he still needed one.
Oh, he still needed one. Sorry, I didn't quite realise. Yeah, this is a replay, by the way. Oh, a hit on the back. Darren Mrocek hitting Jurnej Simičić. That's something you don't see very often. The two Burst eSports cars coming into contact, and everybody down there at team management will be having their head in their hands right now, really fearful about what that could have led to. But yeah, with Mrocek on the soft tyres right now, it's looking like a comfortable fourth place for him, unless he's been told to stick behind Simičić, or if he just can't get through.
Look at the battle as well for 7th place. Luca D'Amelio defending from Carlos Martin and Peter Berliak as well. So plenty of fights as well as things stand. I wonder if they've completed their pit stop sequence. Luca D'Amelio, we're waiting to come in actually for his final stop. So currently running in 7th position. He will not be holding that to the checkered flag. So Carlos Martin will be promoted up a position. He has come in for his final pit stop of 2 laps on this tyre. I think D'Amelio will be going for another few laps. He's done 16 laps, 17 laps. He's currently on his 12th. Actually, no, I think he's just come into the pit lane. There he has indeed. So he'll be going onto the soft tyres until the checkered flag of the race. But he'll be dropping down the order. Just 16 cars left in it. We are at a slightly shortened field here at Nürburgring, courtesy of an awful lot of retirements. In fact, a total of 8 of them. Danny Kish being the latest addition to that list.
Yeah, absolutely. So a shame to see for him, certainly. A shame to see for all 8 of those guys who have retired from this race, unfortunately. But it's just been one of those attritional races that happen from time to time. But Carlos Martin survives it all, and he's put in a good performance today. Not quite had the form so far this particular season, as we're going to get a little bit of a replay right now. Here's what happened to Kish, and it's going to be a retirement in the pit lane, I'm afraid. So that was the end of him. But yeah, Martin's been going in the right direction, I think it's fair to say, so far in this season. 15th place at San Marino, 8th place 2 weeks ago at Portugal, and it's looking like it might be a 7th place for him right now. And Dennis Jordan still has a pit stop to go, let's not forget. So right now he's fighting over 6th. As we look at Michi Hoyer and Janis Brakshock, these guys actually losing time to Alex Siebel. So despite the fact that the German's been on those tyres for quite a long time, and he's no longer reeling in or pulling away from Hoyer and Brakshock, he's at this holding pattern at the moment. The longer he can hold this kind of pattern that we've got going on at the moment, the better it is for him. He's going to put hard tyres on towards the end of the race. They're burning their tyres up at the moment. Well, not burning them up, but they're certainly putting wear onto them. Siebel's going to put some new, fresh, hard tyres on towards the end of this race. He's going to be faster. These tyres are going to be in better condition for him to charge them down and hopefully, for his sake, overtake them as well.
He's currently running in the mid to low 28s, is Alex Siebel. It's a 28.3 on the previous lap of the race. And it was a 28.8 for Michi Hoyer, which kind of falls in line. Of course, he's running in a heavy tanked hard tyre, which we saw from Jurnej Simičić at the start of the race when he was running in those sort of mid to low 29. So Hoyer's pace at the moment is really, really good. It does match the kind of what we would expect from hard tyres full tank, running 28.8s, 28.6 for Janis Brakshock on the last lap. For Siebel, obviously the pace drop-off, it probably get a little bit worse as the stint goes on. In fact, the previous lap that he's just completed, as he stays out on the circuit with a 28.5, it will still be faster than the cars behind, but it's just a couple of tenths here, a couple of tenths there. It's fine though, because he's still pulling out the gap bit by bit, a tenth here, a tenth there, a tenth here, a tenth there. And obviously when he comes in and when he gets to those hard tyres, he will be behind Michi Hoyer and Janis Brakshock, and it will be by quite a bit, but he should be able to close back in. I still don't think it's the right strategy, and I still think they've potentially thrown away a race victory, but it may translate into a decent result if Alex Siebel can catch up and get by 2 of those things are both very, very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really on the limit right now. We've been informed, by the way, that kind of pit stop times, normally it'd be 28 seconds, but Dibbo's going to be able to shave 4 seconds off of his pit stop because of the fuel he needs to take. It's not going to quite be a full tank. And that pit stop, it's going to be 24 seconds. And just look at that gap right now. 23.8. So at the moment, he's going to be pretty much side by side with Michi Hoyer, but not quite in front. And as the gap develops, as I'm talking right now, it's just ticked over 24 seconds. They're literally going to be side by side as the Evolution Motorsports car comes out the pit lane. Speaking of that, George has just come out the pit lane. He's just behind Phil Krause. It's going to be low-end points, I'm afraid, for the man who finished 5th place in 2021 in the championship season. A disappointing day for Dennis Jordan, really, being stuck in traffic for so long. But here's his teammate, Alex Siebel, who's in. This is the big moment. Hard tyres once again. Where is Michi Hoyer? Where is Jonas Brakshock in all of this?
Yeah, a driver looking for his first victory in the World Championship. 9 seconds, as it has been for the previous few stops, departs the pit lane. Let's keep our eye out as to where the two drivers chasing behind. We look at Michi Hoyer. We ride on board with Michi Hoyer. You're going to see on the right-hand side of your screen, there's Siebel. He is out behind this pack. He's going to try and hang on from Jonas Brakshock, and that could be very, very important indeed. He's going to absolutely floor it on the throttle. They're going to be close. There's going to be contact between the two as just pushing it off, and that will push Michi Hoyer into a position for potential victory. Just too close. I'm not sure from the angle we saw if it was too much of a pinch from Siebel or too much of a drift outwards from Jonas Brakshock, but either way the two came together and they went for a spin. Let's take a look on board with Alex Siebel. I think it'll be better off to see it from Jonas Brakshock's on board. Oh, it's a little bit of a pinch there, it seems. I'm not sure what it's going to seem like from Brakshock's point of view.
Yeah, let's have a look now. Does Siebel come down on Brakshock here?
Oh, they kind of came together.
They did kind of meet in the middle there. Siebel came down a little bit. Brakshock drifted out a little bit. I'd call that a racing incident personally. It's just a real shame to see for Brakshock. Let's see now. He's not quite, when we get to the mid part of the corner, he won't quite be as tight on the apex as he maybe could be. You can see him drifting up there, but Siebel's on board. He was kind of drifting back towards the corner. I think you're right. They kind of met in the middle in that one. And Brakshock, unfortunately, is going to be resigned to 3rd place now. It's just a question between Siebel and Hoyer for this race win. Siebel's going to have newer tyres to be able to do this. I think Brakshock's going to be able to hold on for a podium, for his 2nd ever World Championship podium. But I don't think the race win is out of his reach right now. 10 laps to go. Hoyer versus Siebel. This could be quite important in terms of the championship, to be honest. I know it's early, but it's worth talking about. Hoyer's won the first 2 races. Siebel and all of his rivals cannot afford to let him win a 3rd. Siebel's already 26 points behind the German in front of him right now. Michi Hoyer's got more than double the points of Alex Siebel excuse me, at this point in the season. So if Siebel were to overtake right now, it would severely take the pressure off of him, and obviously he'd be delighted as well. It'd be his first World Championship win.
It's going to be a hard run for Michi Hoyer to hang on at the moment. Jonas Brakshock, after that spin, 6.3 seconds back. I think as they say, I think it was a bit of a meet in the middle. I think both of them sort of just came together, because if you watch that, especially on that slow-mo which was shown, you did see that Jonas Brakshock, especially if you keep your eye on the white line, you can see a bit more of that appearing. You can see the front end really drifting out. The two kind of came together. It was a very tight entry that Jonas Brakshock gave, and he had more room to use on the right-hand side to sort of sweep into the corner, and he didn't use that as well. So I kind of agree it's a racing incident, but then Jonas Brakshock lost out more than Alex Siebel. How Race Direction will see that and how everyone else will is, each to their own. I think it's not exactly an easy incident to look over. Either way, what we do have is back to a fight for the race lead. Siebel has caught in on Michi Hoyer. There's now less than a second between the two of them. It's in fact half a second as we complete lap 51. 9 laps to go in the race. Michi Hoyer is going to have to hang on. It's going to have to be a brave move from Siebel, though. And we know that overtaking is very difficult round here. Where's his opportunity going to come? Is it going to be T1? Is it going to be somewhere else a bit random? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I think it's going to seem significantly less difficult when there's a race win on the line. You might start to wonder, where else could I possibly make this move? Also, you've got to remember the tyre difference right now. For the last few moments, Siebel has had a fuel difference. His car's been lighter for the last 20 laps than Michi Hoyer and Jonas Braksuk as well. That's no longer the case. However, he has got newer tyres. He'll be able to get better traction out of these corners. He'll be able to corner a little bit better as well, for what it's worth, in the dirty air. You can see how close he is right now. There's got to be a move sooner rather than later, because I think Siebel's just going to end up burning his tyres out a little bit behind Hoyer at the moment. But both of these guys, with a race win on the line, they're going to be fighting very, very hard indeed. And I hope they don't come together, but it's going to be so aggressive between these two. They're both going to badly, badly want to win this race. I think Siebel's going to want it very, very badly, though, because we noted before, he's not won a race before in the World Championship. He's not even finished second before. This would actually be his best ever World Championship result. He's only ever finished third in the past. So it would be a big moment for Alex Siebel, but whether he can do it or not is certainly another question. We come out of the final corner right now, but a great exit from Michi Hoyer. Fantastic out of that final corner. And despite the slipstream that Siebel's going to get, I don't think he's close enough.
He's going to look, but absolutely no way to send it. Very, very good on the brakes, of course. Brakes being very powerful here. And yeah, with Siebel at the moment, like regardless of that incident, he's going to have to put that in the back of his mind. He'll know which way it's been, whether he'll know whether he felt he squeezed or not. And basically will remove that from his mind, get rid of it, because it's not relevant right now. If he gets a penalty for it, he gets a penalty for it. It will be what will be. Let's just focus on trying to get that race victory and see what happens afterwards. There's still plenty of time for that to come. And yeah, the drive off the final corner from Michi Hoyer is just about good enough to cover things off. Whilst Alex Siebel hasn't taken a victory in the World Championship, his teammate has ended up winning at the track that we visit next. And he is very close with Phil Kraus to try and get into the final points-paying position. As we look at Dennis Jordan, it was very close at turn one, very close going into the arena section. Won the Dutch Grand Prix, and if you saw that one, it was a pretty crazy race. I think there was disconnections from the likes of Jane Simitic from memory and goodness knows what else that allowed Dennis Jordan to be victorious that day. And of course, he has won an FSR. Other than that, winning the Indy 300 at the end of the race Indy Pro Championship as well, for good measure, when Evolution Motorsports took the Teams Championship. We're very close for the race lead, though. This is the best chance for Alex Siebel. What happened through NGK there? Oh, as he's turned in too much over to the right-hand side, picked up the curb just as they were running through Coca-Cola for the 53rd time. We're running into turn one now. Michi Hoyer hanging on. He's going to defend to the inside. Alex Siebel, no way through at the moment, picks it back to the outside and maybe going to try and swoop round. A bit of a mistake there from Michi Hoyer as he runs too deep into turn one. Going to be able to cover it off into the Mercedes Arena section, and Alex Siebel no way through, but they were close off of NGK. Suggests that potentially the Evolution Motorsports is very, very good out of Varsity now.
Yeah, absolutely. Siebel doesn't seem to be that strong out of the final corner because he's not getting the greatest run onto the front straight, as we've seen the last couple of times now. He struggled really to even make an impression on Hoyer, who did go a little bit wide on that particular occasion. Siebel might be able to pressure him into doing it again and maybe take advantage of that. But as these two fight, the gap to Braksuk comes down. I think he's come down by about 1.5 seconds in the last few laps. So maybe he can even make a resurgence. And what a story it would be if he could win from this situation. But I doubt it at this point. It's going to be difficult for him to do so. Still 6 laps though. Siebel has got time on his side. It's not as if we've got 2 laps to go and he really needs to start making the move ASAP. He's got time. He can bide his time a little bit and take a good opportunity. He doesn't need to make a half-chance lunge at the moment. We're not getting quite down to that desperation stage just for the moment. He needs to kind of calmly consider and make this move rather than throwing it down the inside on a kind of kamikaze manoeuvre, although Hoyer is doing very well at the moment. Siebel's just not getting that run out of the final corner. You saw it again there. Big slide, and he just can't do it into turn one because of that poor run.
And I disagree. I actually think he does need to go for a bit of a kamikaze kind of move. He needs to absolutely throw it down the inside. He needs to go for something brave, something bold, something kind of, I guess, insane almost. Because the thing is, his overtaking around here is so difficult. You don't get many opportunities. And the first one that comes up, he needs to grab it and he needs to go. And that's the problem around here, is that we if he waits until the final lap, he thinks, oh, well, that opportunity is not very good, or maybe not that one. He's going to run out of time. And as much as there is still a fair amount in the race left to go, he's just running out of every opportunity. Every corner that goes by is an opportunity passed, and that's as prevalent with 5 laps to go as it is with 1 lap to go. Each corner is an overtaking opportunity. I mean, you'd be brave to try one up here, but still, they're all passing him by now. Where is that opportunity going to come from? I thought Michi Hoyer out of Arston was a little bit too far over to the left-hand side as they departed the corner when we looked backwards, and maybe that he was going to get a poor run out of the corner. It ended up being fine and fair enough, and at the moment seems to be doing plenty enough to hang on to this position for now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's doing a good job at defending, as you mentioned. But I just don't know how long this is going to last at the moment. He's got very, very good traction, though, hasn't he, Michi Hoyer? Out of the chicane, out of the final corner as well. But Seabull is closer this time. He is going to get a big slipstream now, and Hoyer may have to defend for the first time. Into turn one. Seabull's gaining in the slipstream. Is it going to be a lunge? No, not for the moment. Hoyer knew he was there, though. Just kind of half covered him off. But no meaningful move there made by Seabull. 5 laps to go now. He is getting less and less opportunities, as you say, with every passing corner. He's got less and less opportunities. But there are still 5 laps to go. And I think it's going to come down right to the very final lap, if I'm honest.
How many times have we seen that in the World Championship? Remember back to Michi Hoyer's first victory at the 2020 Malaysian Grand Prix, where it did come down to the final lap and a move around the final corner of the race between himself and his teammate Jerne Simoncic. It was a big moment for the German. It moved him forward in SimRacing. His victory at the start of this season moved him forward further still. And then to have come to the Portuguese Grand Prix, again, backed it up, dusted off the, maybe it's just the opening Grand Prix kind of thing. Brushed that off, pushed that to one side and got on with it. Here again, he is confirming his position as a proper threat, not only in the title race, but to everyone across rFactor 2 at the moment, because he's a driver that is really moving forward. Alex Seabull is a driver who is probably one of the most consistent you'll find across all of the races that he's done in the FSR series as a whole, whether it's the World Championship or the Race Indy Pro series. He hasn't retired from a single race. That's a commentator's curse if ever you've heard one. But he hasn't retired from a race. He's failed to score points on a couple of occasions from memory, but he's finished in every single attempt that he's made, showing his consistency and showing his composure. And that's just kind of like one of those things about Alex, is that he kind of knows how to weigh up whether a move is on and whether it's not. And at this point, that is constantly going through his mind as to risk versus reward, whether 18 points is worth it or whether he's going to try and push 25 and potentially risk getting not only the penalty from Brackshot, we'll see if that one unfolds, but even one for an incident that might happen.
Yeah, with the way the point system is in FSR and F1 in real life at the moment, 7 points for a race win is designed to make you really go for it and think, I'll settle for second here. That's not they try to eliminate that mentality, and I think it's going to kind of work here. I think Seabull does need to win this race, really. If you think about the difference between 33 points adrift to Michi Hoyer or 19, that's a 14-point swing, and that's not insignificant in a 12-race championship. It's a fairly short season this year, as it has been for the last couple of seasons, which makes each race ever so slightly more important than in previous years. So I think Seabull does really need to overtake here, as Hoyer does get another good exit off of the chicane and off of the final corner as well. He's very, very good. You can see the gap's more than 5 attempts now. Seabull is no longer crawling all over the back of Hoyer in the way that he was a little bit earlier on. A little bit worrying for him because he's not quite putting as much pressure on. Hoyer's going to start to believe now, maybe he can do this, maybe he can hold on against the odds, I would have said 10 laps ago, against all odds. But now the odds are starting to swing in his favour.
It's kind of one of those things of like the time you're at the most threat when it comes to defending a position, even if they're on like much fresher tyres, etc., even if they're just a much faster driver, the time you're most at threat is the first time they catch you. That is where it's at its absolute highest. If you can hold on for 3, 4, 5 laps, as much as it's sort of like, then you've got to hang on for the rest of the race, which is like another 10 laps or whatever from that point. But because you've held on for 5 laps, that's when the pace from the attacking drivers seems to sort of level, where everything seems to sort of balance itself out. That's kind of what we're seeing from Alex Seabull, is that he was going on the attack for the first couple of laps he was behind Michi Hoyer, but then every lap past that point is just getting harder and harder. And we've seen that time and time again throughout the grid. We've seen it obviously with Rodger and Simoncic, although I think there's a bit more of a team at play there. We're seeing it between Carlos Martin, who's currently in 6th place. A shout out to him. Peter Berliak as well behind him. Ibrahim Khan, Tom Saleh. Nothing being able to happen there. Phil Kraus still keeping Dennis Jordan at bay. Again, no ways through for these drivers. 2 laps to go in the race. And the most important thing, the most important reason as to why Michi Hoyer is hanging on to this race lead at the moment is because of his exit from Coca-Cola is so damn good. The Alex Siebel just cannot catch anything.
It's just incredibly difficult. It's the most important corner on the circuit at the moment, really. That final corner. The turn 1 is the best overtaking opportunity, so if you can get the best run out of the final one, then you're in a good place to try and make the overtake. But at the moment, Siebel is not getting that run, and he's only going to get one more opportunity down into turn 1, unless he wants to have a go at the chicane, which I don't think he's going to do. Then, he's really going to struggle to get through here. You said it earlier on, he needs to hit as hard as possible, as early as possible. I thought he could bide his time and stick behind Hoyer for a little while, but now I've realised that that's not a good strategy at all, because you see exactly the situation on your screens right now. Siebel unable to get through on Hoyer, and it's almost going to take a mistake at this point from the championship leader for him to actually, lose this race at this point, if he were to be able to take this through the right-hander. They go towards the chicane. The gap's less than half a second. Siebel needs a good chicane here. He needs a good final corner. It's a last chance saloon at the moment.
This was this part of the circuit where Siebel had an attempt as well. It was quite short after the pit stop from him. Gave it a good go. Unfortunately, wasn't able to do anything. And to be fair, I don't think that departure from the final corner is going to be good enough for Alex Siebel. He is going to close in on Michi Hoyer, and we see he's better on the brakes down into turn 1. Saw how close he got on the previous lap. A bit of a mistake there from Michi Hoyer, but not enough for anything to happen. Alex Siebel's right there. Just seeing those mistakes creep in might wake Michi Hoyer up, or might make him a bit more concerned about how this race is unfolding. He's definitely feeling the pressure of the German behind. Simon Cichem-Rotchek, nothing happening there. Peter Berliak and Carlos Martin, nothing happening there. Same as the battle between Phil Krauss and Dennis Jordan as they run into turn 1. Phil Krauss seeming to hang on for the final points-paying position. See how this one goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Krauss is going to defend right towards the pit wall. It's going to be a fighting over 1 point at the moment, but every point counts. Let's not forget, down the outside goes Dennis Jordan. He's going to go for the cutback towards turn 2, but it's going to be difficult for him to hang it around the outside here as well. Maybe the inside for turn 3. The crisscross once again, but not quite. Krauss looks like he's going to hold on to that place. And another Evolution Motorsports car stuck behind the car in front. How many times have we seen and said that today?
Wow. If there was something that I was expecting to see after 3 rounds in the 2021 FSR World Championship, it wasn't going to be this. At the moment, with how things were coming into this, it was pole position, translate yourself into a race victory. That ends today, because that isn't the case, but it is the case that Michi Hoyer translates to race victory, as it's his 3rd consecutive one of the season. Just came out on top from Alex Siebel. Janis Brakshock on the podium as well. We'll catch interviews with them and see what was going on and what's going through their mind. Jone Simic is going to hang on to 4th place. Devon Rocek rounds out the top 5. Personal best drive of the season from Carlos Martin, moving his way up the order to 6th place. Fantastic stuff from him. Peter Berliak after a podium position last time out. Not good enough here. 7th place just about for him. Tom Savali and Ibrahim Khan out of the final corner. Great drive from Khan. And then we've got this battle between Phil Krauss and Dennis Jordan coming out of the final corner. Whilst his teammate was battling for victory, Dennis Jordan threw something interesting strategy-wise. It wasn't good enough. Doesn't even score a point. Just 11th place on the road. Hoyer on top again. 75 points to his name, taking control of the 2021 World Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great drive from Michi Hoyer to take his 4th FSR World Championship victory, and the 3rd of this season, in a season that's only been 3 rounds so far. There are your full race results, by the way. Hoyer, Siebel, Brakshock, your top 3. We'll talk to those guys in a few moments' time. But you're right, Hoyer is continuing to prove himself right now, and proving himself to get even better. Not only is he a legitimate championship contender in the 2021 World Championship, he's the favourite right now.
He's very quickly, yes, becoming the favourite. Maybe, obviously not, I would say putting one hand on the trophy, but we are way too early there. And trust me, these things can fall apart very, very quickly. Your finishers on screen at the moment: Michi Hoyer, Alex Siebel, Janis Brakshok, Simičić, Marocek, Carlos Martin, Petr Berliak, Tom Sallerly, Ibrahim Khan getting his first points in the World Championship ahead of Phil Crouch, pro champion from 2020. Behind that on the grid from 11th down, we got a lot of retirements as well in the German Grand Prix for good measure. 11th position was Dennis Jordan, of course, Luca Di Melio, Mohamed Patel, Ricardo Costa and Ernest Lappins back there in 15th position. Robin Panzar was 16th place, and then retirements galore. Danny Kish, Adam Maguire, Ivan Leonov, Sergio Fletcher, Liam Deval, Luke Maguire, Jeffrey Fournier and Danny Van Der Nee all retired from the race. Not ideal for them, most certainly, but alas, you'd be hard pressed to say it was a race filled with crazy action. It was very, very hard to race around here, but it was all about dealing with pressure. We've got him in the booth, and what a time to interview him. 75 points to your name, Michi Hoyer. Every week we come back to this, and I'm almost surprised, but you're just driving better and better.
I'm just as surprised as you with today's win, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, last stint was. I mean, you're going into it, and the pressure's on you. And I nearly cracked once, and if Alex would have gone by, I think that would have been definitely like nothing I could do. And apart from that, just I tried to play my strength into the exits, trying to get good enough of runs, and hoped for it to be enough for the main straight. But I got to say, the strategy calls and the driving of Alex today is just pretty spot on. Like, had to push, had to do everything in the right moment, and he just did. And I basically did some strategy mistakes, some small ones, and in the end, probably super lucky with, I think, Janos and Alex having an incident that was giving me the edge in the first 3 or 4 laps when his tires were significantly better than mine to defend.
You ran third for quite a lot of the race behind these two, watching them battle and switch positions in the earlier stages. You went for that undercut a little bit early. Was that learning from what Alex was doing for that final stop? You saw him undercut a couple of times. Was that kind of where that idea came from?
The idea was already in my head there for the second stint, but then Janos just boxed in the same minute, and I was like, well, that's a missed opportunity. And then I tried it hard on the third stint, or on the third pit stop. But when I actually came to my pit stop, I didn't get service for the first 2 seconds, and I underfueled the car in order to jump Janos. But those 2 seconds were exactly the gap in the end that Janos just came ahead of me into the third stint. Like, I planned to be ahead of Janos on the third stint already, but well, my pit crew decided elsewise and didn't service me when I stopped. So, well, in the end, I'm happy I got served anyway.
One final question. You pulled out a gap over 3 races to have more than a race win over the next car as far as my maths go, which is, don't trust me because my maths is terrible. Shows how strong you've been over the first 3 rounds. The question comes is, does that add pressure in the sense that you're in a strong position in the championship, or does it almost relieve pressure in the sense that each week you come back, you're just as strong?
I mean, right now I'm trying to take it race by race. Like, obviously, coming into here, the pressure was already there. Arguably, I cracked a little bit under it in qualifying, since I thrown away my good lap. But at the end of the day, like, this win certainly boosts the self-esteem. Certainly is good for the I'm looking for the word, for the comfortableness, whatever. Like, you know what I'm trying to say. And from now on, I'm just trying to keep pushing, keep at the level, and we will see where we end up after the next 9 races.
Well, thank you, Michi Hoyer, race winner for the 3rd consecutive time this season. We'll jump down to Alex Siebel, and I think you know what is going to be asked, and it'll be passed on to Janis Brakshok as well. They're both in the booth right now, so hopefully all is going to be calm. There was an incident between you. What was your view?
Well, I didn't see it from the outside. Right now, I think, I Yeah, I think I let a lot of room on the inside at the entry, but less on the exit. And yeah, the nature of the corner. I guess Janos' angle into the corner wasn't the greatest either, but then I guess it was just not enough room on the inside. But yeah, it's the nature of the corner that if you if you have so different angles onto the entry, it will clash on the exit. I mean, I couldn't see him. I just expected him to be somewhere there, and at the and I hoped, or at least I expected him to back off at the exit. But yeah, I guess quite unfortunate. But I haven't looked on the outside, so if it's totally on me, then of course sorry, Janos. But yeah, I didn't see it yet, so I guess it's quite unfortunate either way for both of us.
Your first podium since the midway point of 2020. Pace looked really, really good today. Obviously, you led an awful lot of laps. We were kind of curious in the commentary booth when you moved on to a four-stop strategy. Was that always the plan from the start of the race, or did that kind of come in a little bit later?
I planned it to do it from the beginning, but also it depended on the traffic. But right after the start, I think only us three, the top three, was on softs, and all the other guys on hards. So I knew the track would be clear, so I went for it. And I think it worked pretty well, except I guess Rodger and Simoncic were too close for my third pit stop, so I had to refuel less, which in the end obviously shortened my penultimate stint, which then was just not enough to rejoin in first.
Well, thank you, Alex. Runner-up in the German Grand Prix, German 1-2 here. We'll jump straight across to Janis Brakshock. Follow up with that question. What was your view on the incident?
Well, apart from that, if I can describe this race in one word, it was level. It was highly competitive battle between Michi, Alex, and me at the whole race. Well, I hold my line on the inner line. I braked a bit, and yeah, Alex, I think he turned into me. But it's racing, you know. It's really hard to say anything about it. But I'm positive, by the way, apart from these. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with the result, and still need to develop the car for the upcoming races.
You obviously got pole position today, which was fantastic. Congratulations on that. Brilliant effort. First pole position since the Italian Grand Prix back in 2019. Remember what happened that day. There was a bit of an incident late in the race. You also had a podium that season as well, back at the German Grand Prix. This is your first podium since then. You were super consistent as well through 2020. You moved out of Ghost Speed to HME. How's it settled in HME? Because you seem to be getting faster and faster as the races goes on. And can we expect more of this Janis Brakshock later through the season?
Definitely, yeah. I'm pretty sure, but it will be a long journey and a very hard fight for the second or third or maybe to the fourth position. So yeah, I think the field is getting stronger and stronger compared to last year, for example. Yeah, the field is getting stronger, but yeah, I'm definitely keen to produce something like these results.
Well, thank you very much, Janis Brakshock. There's our podium from the German Grand Prix. Back to Ewan, and I want to get your final thoughts on our German Grand Prix.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really fascinating race, really, with all the different strategies that were going on. We just didn't know what was going to happen next, really. And yeah, I just thought it was a brilliant race. There's your championship standings, by the way. Michi Hoyer now leading by 30 points over Simoncic. Then Siebel is 33 points behind after only 3 races, but none of these gaps are insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination. A lot can still change over the remaining 9 rounds, starting with the Dutch Grand Prix in 1 week time. So we look forward to having your company then. But I just really enjoyed it. I thought the strategy this season has just been so fascinating, and this race has been no exception. Looking forward to next week.
Yeah, exactly. Do not go anywhere. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because, of course, we are racing once again in a week's time on April the 11th for the Dutch Grand Prix. That wraps us up here, though, in Germany. There's your schedule as well. Afterwards, we head to Britain, the United States. We've got still a fair run until the Brazilian Grand Prix on the 22nd of August. We're only a quarter of the way through the season, but it has been a dramatic opener to it anyway. Thank you all for joining us here in the FSR World Championship. Of course, thanks to SimLab, 3D Rap, Masita Esports, and The Race. And of course, Cameron Rodger has been on cameras. I've been Lewis McGlade, Ewan O'Leary alongside. Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.